Good morning. I will now convene the regular meeting of the Board of Lane County Commissioners for Tuesday, May 14th. Welcome to anyone watching online and to everyone here in Harris Hall this morning. We will start off by seeing if there are any adjustments to the agenda. I will just note we do have a 10:15 time certain today and an adjustment to our executive session tomorrow where we'll be hearing just one instead of the previously noticed 2 items. Any emergency business this morning from the administrator? None. Board? Seeing none, we will move right into public comment. We will begin with folks who have signed up to speak in person here in Harris Hall. Then I will check in with Tanya to see if anyone online wishes to address the board this morning, and then give one more chance here in person should anyone arrive late. Just a reminder or news for anyone who is new. You will have 3 minutes to present your testimony to the board. I'll call your name to the podium, and when you arrive there, please state your name for the record. When you do, your 3 minutes will begin. You'll see a timer any minute now on the wall, and then you may begin your public comment. First up this morning will be Bill Ledford, and he'll be followed by Heidi Ringus. Tanya, could we get, there we go. Thank you. So Bill Ledford, please come to the podium, state your name for the record, and keep your eye on the timer. Good morning.
My name is Bill Ledford. I live at 32443 Coburg Bottom Loop Road. A neighbor moved a 42-foot destination trailer on their property, which was occupied by 4 people. I filed a complaint with land management, which resulted in a notice of voluntary compliance on August 21st of 2020. Since a voluntary compliance, the property owner has knowingly and willfully violated lane code by not terminating all residential occupancy of the trailer, disconnecting all of the site utilities, and hooking up the trailer sewer water to the septic system of the primary house without a permit. A temporary medical hardship was filed on April 4th of 2024 by the property owner. State law says a family hardship exists where conditions relate to the necessary care for a member of the family occupying the principal dwelling and where medical conditions relate to the infirm or aged. The property owner fails on all 3 points of this law because nothing is stated in the application that the family member with the hardship is living in the principal dwelling. The hardship member is 35 years old, and that is far from being aged. Nothing in the application indicates hardship member is infirm. The TMH application should have been rejected on the following information was incomplete, inaccurate, and false. The landowner's signature on page 1 of the application does not match with the signatures required on the rest of the application. The installer information on wastewater application is blank. The owner's signature boxes are left blank. The owner does not identify the trailer as being on the property. On the plot plan, the owner shows the trailer as being new. No evidence that the hardship person is residing on the property. The required written statement from the caregiver has not been made available. The planned TMH housing contains 4 bedrooms. This seems to be excessive to house the hardship member and the owner. The owner states there is 1 existing dwelling on the property. What I'm requesting to commissioners to do is this: put a hold on this temporary medical hardship application until all information can be verified. Verify that the hardship person is residing on the property. Verify that a DEQ licensed installer did the septic hookup. Verify if a TMH can be approved when a rural residential property has 2 single-family dwellings on it. If the TMH is approved, make sure that only the hardship person or the property owner can live in the TMH housing. This is really the intent of the TMH code. Verify if the TMH application can be processed when the property is in non-compliance. Restore Lanes County promise to me that not more than 1 permanent single-family dwelling or manufactured dwelling on a lot or parcel of any size is allowed in Lane County on rural residential zones.
Thank you. Thank you for your public comment.
Thank you much. Appreciate it.
Next, I will call Heidi Ringus to the podium. Again, please state your name for the record and your time will begin. And after Ms. Ringus will be John Profit.
Heidi Ringus. Haven't seen me in a while. So, on the 18th, we came in, on the 18th of last year, July last year, we came in and we told you that you cannot trust the people that are giving you the information that you need to make decisions. Krahiski whitewashed our information, and it didn't get read. Then Keir Miller zoomed in and told you that for 10 years, that the LMD is so inept that they can't get John Profit to get a commercial permit. Okay, that's impressive that they're using their own, But here's what actually 10 years ago what happened. There was a request for a fire assessment, Mortier Engineering, a reputable company. And page 1, paragraph 1, says, as requested, a site visit on 6/7/13, and a review for the plans for the above structure was made by this office. The purpose of the review was to determine the safety features needed to allow the structure to be built as a 4-story residential building. Okay? So, John Webster kept saying we need to find that code in the OSSC. Now, everybody keeps telling you they're misinterpreting the code. They are. They keep saying commercial code, it's the commercial code. Well, maybe in Eugene it applies to commercial buildings, but state overall, not the commercial code. Want to know how I know? I emailed a code specialist at the DCBC, BS, whatever. And he says, I said, is the OSSC strictly a commercial code? I'm unable to answer your question. Neither the OSSC or the ORSC use the word commercial in code language. Instead, we find that many residential occupancies are OSSC governed, including all those outside of the scope of the ORSC. So that means, and it provides for residential, here we go, here's the code, in the OSSC, 310.1 for residential group R, 310.4 residential group R3 occupancies. So it provides for residential occupancies, which they're absolutely straight out denying. And this is where it says 4 feet or 60 feet and for 4 stories. So there's that proof right there. What they're trying to do is now they won't let us put a sprinkler system in. The whole idea of the Mortier report was to find the safety features needed. Well, that was to put a sprinkler system in. So yes, for 10 years, he's needed to put a sprinkler system in, but you got to get through the other building parts before you can put the sprinkler system in, and they stopped him in 16 with the electrical. So Steve McGuire all of a sudden put in an inquiry, needed the engineering and the as-built, and now they're trying to say there is absolutely no plans for the as-built. And
Thank you for your public
yeah,
comment.
okay, but
Your time has expired. Thank
yes,
you.
the CA22 itself
Thank you.
proves our case.
Thank you, Ms. Ringus. Next
Yes.
up is John Profit, and he will be followed by Tiffany Monroe.
Good morning, I'm John Profit. Been here way too many times. The county has sent me 3 options for my house now to comply, so this is a new compliance letter. And the first one is to rip off the 4th floor. The second one is to apply for a commercial permit, which they won't do, but it will cost me another $60,000 or $80,000. And then they'll say, oh, but your house isn't commercial, your property isn't zoned for commercial. And if it was, you are now in the new floodplain, so you can't build it anyway. And the third choice is tear the entire house down. Okay? There were 3 options. Why, in these 3 options now, it didn't address the CA 2216 of May 20th, which was about the sprinkler system. No chance to put a sprinkler system anymore. They keep adding more charges and they keep looking for more ways to add violations. I've showed you that. It does not mention the sprinkler system, but remove the 4th floor. Get a commercial permit or tear down the whole thing. Then they will still look for more violations. LMD is not trying to get me to comply. They're trying to stop me at every turn. Every time I comply, they change what I need to comply with. The fire engineering, and meet with the fire marshals in 2013, I did. That was to add a sprinkler system to my house to keep it at 4 stories in 2013. in 2016. You have to have the entire place re-engineered, and you have to produce the as-built. Cost me another $15,000. I did that. They let my permit expire. They did not reinstate it until July of 2022. My 2022 reinstatement signed the as-built and installed the sprinkler system. When I was accomplishing that, they stopped me and let my permit run out. That was in 2023, July. They are never going to let me finish my house until someone makes them. I'm asking you folks to make them reinstate my original permit, which we have proved time and time again was the right one, and have them approve the sprinkler system permit for Jet Industries. And so either someone stops them or they go to jail, because as they keep losing and changing the requirements, that's fraud. If I had to put a sprinkler system in for 10 years to keep my house, why isn't that valid now? Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Next to the podium will be Tiffany Monroe, and they will be followed by David Eigel.
Good morning, Chair Trieger, Vice Chair Lovall, and members of the Lane County Board of Commissioners. My name is Tiffany Monroe, and I am from Junction City. And today I am presenting to you on behalf of myself. I wanted to make sure my comments got on the record because this week I'll be introducing my second child to the world, which is very exciting. Recently, your staff presented on some amendments derived from the Charter Review Committee. One of the recommendations I'd like to emphasize this morning is the idea of an independent redistricting committee in the charter. This is not just a suggestion from a few individuals, but a call from many groups over time. I believe that an independent redistricting committee is the fairest way to reapportion districts. We live in very interesting and, in my opinion, promising times. Due to the unfortunate and undeniable polarization in our state and nation, it is in the best interest of our local region and community to reduce the intensification of partisanship in our boundary lines. This process will also empower local residents to choose wonderful people like yourselves who they believe should represent them and not the other way around. I greatly appreciate your dedication, your time, and all of your work. So I encourage you to look into this independent redistricting committee charter amendment. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your public comment, and good luck to you. Next up is David Eigel.
Good morning, I'm David Eigel, here once again. As my most recent communication with you has documented, the U of O's Dunn report is fraudulent, incompetent, and an embarrassment. The U of O President's Office is claiming that their office has incontrovertible evidence that Dunn was the Eugene Exalted Cyclops and anti-Catholic. After repeated requests, they have been unwilling to state what this evidence is or who within their office is making this assertion. Their latest emails don't even identify the email sender. I'm asking that you collectively and individually contact the U of O president and to CC the Board of Trustees to ask for the factual basis for their assertions. I will happily provide you this week with suggested questions to ask. I can assure you that the only incontrovertible evidence that they will offer will be their own embarrassment. It's time to restore the outstanding reputation of one of Eugene's finest citizens who was dearly beloved by those who knew him. Unfortunately, Lane County has funded through the Lane County History Museum not only a campaign of lies directed at Professor Dunn, but of many others. The material on my website exposing the gross misrepresentations of the Racing to Change exhibit mentioned Baker County and Sheridan, Oregon as examples that disproves the assertion that Oregon was a southern state and anti-Lincoln. I'm adding to my website some additional counties: Grant, Union, Sherman, and Lincoln County. That's right, Oregon was so southern and anti-Lincoln that a county was named Lincoln in honor of President Lincoln. There needs to be an intervention involving the Lane County Historical Society, and the museum should be directed to address past misrepresentations. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. Tiffany, do we have, or excuse me, Tanya, do we have anyone online this morning wishing to present to the board?
I do not see anyone registered to give public comment today.
Thank you so much. And I don't see anyone else having entered Harris Hall. And so that concludes public comment for this morning. Thank you all for being here. I will turn it over to the board for any response and or comments or other issues or remonstrance. Commissioner Seneca.
Yes, thanks everybody for the robust conversation this morning. Mr. Ledford, I believe I read an email this morning from you about this, so it is certainly something we'll be looking into. I think we have a pretty good relationship with our compliance officers, so we'll check into that and be in touch. Mr. Prophet, Ms. Ringus, I've also spoken with the OSBCD, I believe is what the acronym you were getting at, multiple times about lots of projects going on around the county, and it is interesting when you talk to them, and I mean, they're the specialists, and listen to them in depth. You grab parts of codes to make things compliance, and it doesn't mean that we stay right down this line. And I think you bring up a great point about needing some commercial regulations in a residential building. That's where it gets in there. You know, we'll have to work with our building official and see exactly where those codes lie. Miss Harper Monroe, if I may, we always appreciate people come to visit, but when people come to visit that are carrying two, then or there's two of you, it means even more. And I was thinking, I think I heard the news. Felt like just a couple of months ago, but clearly it's been longer than that since we've talked. And you missed the League of Women Voters last week brought up the same exact topic. So I think there's a lot of energy behind it, and I look forward to our future public comments on said IRC. So thank you.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Well said, Commissioner Seneca. I agree with most of your points. I was going to add some of those, but no necessary here. The passion today, I applaud. Thank you for bringing what's important to you to your government, because that's what you're supposed to do. We work for you, so I appreciate that very much. Tiffany, the news is you're due today, so thank you again for coming today of all days. I know how uncomfortable that must be, so I appreciate your comments very much. And David, you amaze me still every day you come, or every week, and your historical background and knowledge. I think to myself, wow, where was that guy when I was in school to teach history to me? I think I would have been a better educated student, so I appreciate your work with that. All those things, it seems like the slow wheels of government move, but be assured that as we listen to your comments, we're making calls and emails, and we're trying to find information that can help you do what you're passionate about. So again, thank you, and working for you.
Commissioner Buck.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Ledford, I'm the County Commissioner for your district. We all got the email, as Commissioner Seneca mentioned, so I'm happy to follow up with you directly. I did forward it on to the director of the department so that we can figure out what the actual situation is from the code compliance perspective and figure out if there's a way to resolve the issue. So feel free to follow up with me if you'd like.
Commissioner Farr.
Thank you, Chair Trieger. A couple of things. First to Ms. Harper, thank you for being here this morning. Thank you for your really well-written testimony. You knew you had a fixed amount of time, and you got your words in very, very well. You made your point very clear about the Independent Redistricting Committee. And you also talked about the polarization that we're all suffering from, both nationally, locally, and even in our midst right here in our community. And it seems that people who don't fall in one of the polar opposites are the ones that get attacked the most by both sides. So whatever we can do to bring people together, we really should do. And I'm interested in your idea, and that's something that I will look at personally very closely. Thank you. And I want to, Mr. Mulcahy, going to talk to you ever so briefly. You know, people talk about homelessness, and people worry why there's so much homelessness. You know, it's been reported, the largest single demographic in our growing homeless community is single adults over 65. mostly single women over 65, the largest single demographic. And there are reasons for that, and some of them are very obvious. Sometimes it's a family that had two incomes and fixed expenses, and suddenly has one or 1.5 incomes, whatever it may be. Had two sets of eyes looking at everything, suddenly has one set of eyes looking at everything. And one set of eyes doesn't catch the same things as two sets of eyes. So we worry about that, and we recognize it. Last week, I got a message from it was a woman over 65 living in a single-wide mobile home. And we talk about single-wide mobile homes quite often, about particularly the older ones. They have maintenance issues, issues about their viability, their livability, etc. But this lady had a couple of issues that were really gnawing at her. And I talked to her for about half an hour, and she was crying. She had, and I'm not going to go into very much detail about it, other than she worried that there was a lien on her property. She worried about her payments, and she worried about the ownership of the property that she lived in. She was on the cusp of becoming one of our growing number of homeless people over 65 years old. I called Mary Vucic Schaefer and I said, to ask about the lien. And Mary said, we'll take care of it. And so Mary, about 4 minutes later, said, well, we've taken care of it. Now, how did Mary take care of stuff in 4 minutes? Well, she got a hold of Jessica Swigert and Carly Welty down in A&T, Assessment and Taxation. And Carly works very specifically with mobile homeowners, with titles, and with the issue of changing titles and changing expenses. And within just a few minutes, she had this lady calmed down, peaceful, and feeling that she was not going to be evicted or lose her home in just a few minutes. And that's from our Assessment and Taxation. It's a matter of all feet, all boots being on the ground. When I went down to talk to them, they showed me around the office, and they showed me the website that A&T put up just last week. And it was a lot of work went into it, and I wanted to point out the fact that Carly and Jessica worked very heavily on it, and Taylor and another Jessica, a second Jessica down there, worked very hard to get the website up. If you've not looked at A&T's website, very user-friendly. If all of the frequently asked questions are right there. Now, even with the frequently asked questions, a lot of times people aren't particularly savvy in negotiating websites. That's when our A&T came in. So I just wanted to commend them out loud in a place where you don't always expect people to be holding hands and guiding people step by step through the very difficult issues and changing needs in their lives. And I didn't mention that the lady had recently become widowed. She'd recently lost her husband, so all of a sudden it was one set of eyes. They took care of her. And so to Mary and Jessica and Carly and Jessica and Taylor, bravo. It's a good story that really is one that I believe we can repeat over and over again. And Mary, our elected assessor, just gave me 3 minutes. It took 3 minutes for her to solve the problem. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Farr. You know, you reminded me, I hadn't shared with the board, but that is a perfect example of what we can do often is help people connect to the right people to solve problems. It's not always for us to solve. It's often at the staff level and sometimes with another elected, and we can just help folks navigate that. And I didn't talk about it, but I had a similar but different situation where I was contacted by a real estate agent who was working with someone who's was unhoused, whose father had passed, who had basically deeded him a property that needed a lot of work and attention, but the confusion was because they had the same name and one was deceased and the other was not, and there was a lien on the property. But the long story short, after several texts and emails and phone calls, yes, both our code compliance folks and our assessment department were able to help and get that taken care of within 48 hours. So this formerly unhoused person was now able to get support for cleaning up the property and move in. So it's a good reminder for us to share the many success stories, which far outweigh the challenges, and also how we can help navigate those challenges for constituents. So thanks for that reminder. And I don't have anything other than to do what you usually do, Commissioner Farr, which is point out that the Tuesday Farmers Market is up and running. But there are some really exciting new programs. So for anyone watching that doesn't know, come down to the market and visit their information booth. There are opportunities if you're a SNAP benefit user to increase the value of your SNAP benefits at the farmers market. And there's also some special programs for young folks shopping at the market who might otherwise not have the resources to enjoy fresh, locally grown produce. So I'll probably see most of us and many of our staff out there at the lunch hour enjoying a beautiful sunny Tuesday Farmers Market day. With that, we will move on to our consent calendar. These are all items considered to be routine. Had anyone wished to discuss an item in particular, it would have been pulled from the consent calendar. Otherwise, these items are passed in a single motion, and all materials are available online for what we are considering on consent calendar today. And with that, I will look for a motion.
Yes, Chair, I move approval and adoption of the consent calendar for Tuesday, May 14th, 2024.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
It has been moved by Vice Chair Lovall, seconded by Commissioner Buck to approve today's consent calendar. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Senega, did I hear a vote? Oh, thank you. I didn't hear you. Thank you so much. Motion carries 5-0. And moving along to item 6, we have two first reading items from Public Works, and I'll welcome Jared Bowder to the table to introduce these items.
Good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioner. Let me just get this open to read the ordinance titles in for the record. And again, yeah, for the record, I'm Jared Bowder, the Lane County Project Manager for the William Lane Park and Recreation District's 2023 Park and Recreation Comprehensive Plan Update Project. And so ordinance number PA 1392, bear with me, in the matter of adopting William Lane Park and Recreation District's 2023 Park and Recreation Comprehensive Plan as the recreation element of the Springfield Comprehensive Plan, removing and replacing the 2012 Park and Recreation Comprehensive Plan, adopting Type 2 text amendments to the Eugene Springfield Metropolitan Area General Plan, adopting the William Lane Park and Recreation District's Park and Recreation Comprehensive Plan as a special purpose plan of the Lane County Rural Comprehensive Plan, and adopting a saving and severability clause. And ordinance number 2403 in the matter of amending Lane Code 16.404B in order to adopt the William Lane Park and Recreation District's Park and Recreation Comprehensive Plan as a special purpose plan of the Lane County Rural Comprehensive Plan. And so, to summarize those ordinances, PA 1392 includes amendments to the Metro Plan and Springfield's Comprehensive Plan. Ordinance 2403 amends Lane County's Rural Comprehensive Plan and Lane Code 16400 to incorporate William Lane's Park and Rec Comprehensive Plan as a special purpose plan in the county. That's required because there's two park facilities outside the urban growth boundary, those being Harvest Landing Boat Launch and the Thurston Hills Natural Area. And so that's why there's those actions that need taken to the RCP. As the ordinance title states, the 2023 plan is proposed to be adopted as the recreation element in the City of Springfield's comprehensive plan. William Lane updates their comp plan every 10 years, and the currently proposed update is a part of that schedule. And so the item before you today is a request that the board approve the first reading and set a second reading and public hearing for June 10th, 2024, time certain at 5:30 p.m. That's a joint meeting with the Springfield City Council to be held in hybrid meeting format at Springfield City Hall. And at that time, staff will provide a more comprehensive staff report on the project, and there will be an opportunity for public comment. And so with that, I'll conclude the staff presentation for this first reading.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff on this item? This is just a first reading, so with that, I'll look for a motion. Vice Chair.
Yeah, I just, a quick question, just Jared, is there going to be a chance where we, as Board of County Commissioners, can have comments and concerns about some of this? Is that in a future meeting? I would suspect not today.
Not today, at the public hearing on June 10th.
Okay, super, great. Thank you for answering that. So I'm ready to make a motion, Chair.
Please.
The motion to move and approve the first reading of ordinance PA number 1392 and ordinance number 24-03, and to set a second reading and joint public hearing with the City of Springfield City Council for June 10th, 2024 at 6 p.m. date time certain in a hybrid meeting format.
Is there a second?
I'll second, although I want to note that the agenda mentions it's June 10th at 5:30 PM. So I'm not sure which is correct.
Oh, we're reading.
5:30 is correct.
Is 5:30? Okay, so
Thank you.
the motion language in the linked agenda says 6, so,
I apologize for that.
okay. So it has been moved by Vice Chair Lovall, seconded by Commissioner Buck, with the amendment to a 5:30 time, but the date remains. Excuse me. All those in favor, any discussion to the motion? Seeing none. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. That's item A. Thank you. And now a first reading on another item, item B. Back to you, Mr. Bowder.
Thank you, Chair. And so I'll read the ordinance title for ordinance number 24-04 in the matter of amending Lane Code Chapter 10.600 to co-adopt amendments to incorporate changes in state law and modernize the Springfield Development Code for the urbanizing area between the city limits and urban growth boundary of the city of Springfield, and to adopt a savings and severability clause. And so we're calling, the project name for this is the Housing Opportunities in Non-Residential Areas for the Springfield Development Code Amendment. And ordinance number 2404 include amendments to Lane Code Chapter 10 to incorporate by reference the amendments made to the Springfield Development Code. The city's proposing to modernize the Springfield Development Code to support efficient, timely, and clear development review. The project's a continuation of work that's been ongoing since 2018, involving a phased plan to update the entire Springfield Development Code. Updating the Development Code to support efficient, timely, and clear development review is a part of Springfield's housing strategy. This work would amend income-qualified housing-related code sections from the bills that were passed by the 2023 Oregon Legislature, and those bills are listed in the agenda cover memo for today's meeting. And the city's also using this opportunity to make other changes to the code for clarity and ease of use. And so this item before you today is a request that the board set a second reading and public hearing for June 10th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. And this is also a joint meeting with the Springfield City Council to be held at Springfield City Hall. And at that time, staff will provide a more comprehensive staff report on the project, and there will also be an opportunity for public comment and board comments and questions. And with that, I'll conclude my staff report.
Thank you. Any questions for staff on this item? With that, I will look for a motion, please.
Thank you, Chair. I move to approve the first reading of ordinance number 24-04 and to set the second reading and joint public hearing with the City of Springfield City Council for June 10th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m., date and time certain in a hybrid meeting format.
And I will note, this one says a 6 p.m. with a 5:30 work session in this language.
I believe there were actually potentially some changes that were made to the agenda after this material was finalized. And so there's no work session, and the hearing starts at 5:30.
Terrific.
And Willamette Lane will be going first on the agenda, and then the Springfield Development Code.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion, please?
I'll second.
Thank you, Commissioner Buck. It's been moved by Vice Chair Lovall, seconded by Commissioner Buck. Any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you all. And finally, not a first reading, an actual order. And I have a different staff member on the agenda, but Mr. Bowder, are you carrying this item today?
That turnoff is online, Chair.
Online. Thank you so much.
This is the only one.
You looked at that deer in the headlights moment. Am I? I don't know. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Good morning, Mr. Tarnoff. I will turn this item over to you to present to the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. So during the 2024 January ice storm, we had quite a bit of debris that had fallen, and the Public Works Road Maintenance Division coordinated multiple stockpile sites to condense the debris in centralized locations. Of the 6 remaining stockpiles that we have, there are 2 in particular that contain about 14,000 cubic yards of vegetative debris. One is at the Hendricks Park, the Hendricks Bridge Park by the boat ramp there, and another one on Sunderman Road. The large amounts of woody vegetative debris pose multiple hazards, including public safety, as these are publicly accessible locations, and then also considerable fire hazard. The other 4 sites in question, while we will to remove all and process all of that material, are blocked by the county and controlled in that regard, so they're not publicly accessible. That being said, we've already executed a contract, gone through a whole bid process, and the contract was awarded to Lane Forest Products for $239,000. This is a little unique in the fact that we're using Lane Manual 20.600.310D, which allows the county administrator to execute contracts and amendments when necessary to secure full benefit of the contract prior to board approval. There has been county council and budget financial planning office support in this regard. And that being said, the contract, like I mentioned, has been executed and the work has already been started as of this morning. That is the general gist of this. So this is more of a formality to make sure that you're fully aware of what's happening, a little ex post facto. But if there's any questions at this time, I'd be more than happy to field those.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions from the board for staff this morning? Commissioner Senega.
Yeah, this is just actually a technical question because I've driven by that pile so many times. Are they going to grind on site or are they going to haul it all away whole?
No, this will be ground on site, and if you go there now at Hendricks Park, that's where they're going to start. The grinder is there, and then we'll be using loaders and trucks to remove the debris, and there will be assistance from county staff to rectify the ground. I'm sorry, to get the ground back in order.
Got it. Okay, thanks. What was the nickname for that pile again? I can't remember.
Mount Brushmore.
Mount Brushmore, that's what it was.
Oh, that's pretty good.
All right, thank you.
That was my only question.
I couldn't think about it either.
I thought it was called Rhode Island.
The size of.
All right.
Motion?
Seeing no other questions from the board, yes, please, Vice Chair.
Well done on all you public works people. That's an incredible Mount Brushmore accomplishment, so good on you. So, Chair, I'd like to move to approve the contract listed in Exhibit A, Order 24-05-14-06 for the processing and removal of woody vegetative debris gathered in stockpiles during the cleanup of January 2024 ice storm, and delegate the authority to the county administrator to execute the contract.
I'll second. I just want to add the expense amount, just for the record, of $239,000.
Thank you, Commissioner Buck. It's been moved by Vice Chair Lovell, seconded by Commissioner Buck. Is there any discussion of the motion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote with the addition of the call out of the amount of the contract of $239,000. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Approval of Order 24-05-14-06 in the matter of approving one public works contract and delegating authority to the county administrator to execute the approved contract for Lane Forest Products LLC in the amount of $239,000. Thank you, Mr. Tarnoff. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners.
Our published agenda shows us going next to an order from Criminal Justice and Rehabilitation Services, but our clerk, Dina Dawson, has arrived, and she's a little busy right now, so we're going to have her jump the line and come to the table to give us an elections update. Welcome. Good morning. Thanks so much for making the trek over here. I'm actually glad you walked over. I'm guessing maybe this was the only way to get you to take a break and a little walk and enjoy some fresh air in the middle of your workday by having you come over to the Harris Hall. Welcome.
Morning, everyone. I did wear my election nerd jacket. Everyone.
Classic.
Thank you. I'm really glad to be here today, and Tanya is helping me by, she's going to point to our website so we can talk about a few of the things that we have listed. And I'm really proud of the Meaningful Observation, AKA Radical Transparency Initiative that we've been working on. So You know, in 2022, when I got here, we implemented the 24/7 live stream and the 8-step ballot processing guide and the tentative ballot processing schedule. And I feel like those are working great as anticipated. Folks can, everything that they need to be able to observe is there, and will continue to improve based on feedback that we receive. In 2023, we implemented the ballot returns dashboard, and we began to modernize the way that we track and report the challenge ballots and the cures. So any signature challenges or cures. Those are present on our dashboarding, and that's an excellent way for people to be able to see the number of ballots that are coming back, and of those, how many have signature issues, and of those, how many are cured. So this election cycle, we've been really working closely with technology services, and we've installed 42-inch monitors above our signature verification monitors. And that was direct feedback from observers that were there in person to monitor the signature verification. They expressed that they really weren't able to see what was happening. So they didn't really feel like they were able to observe the signature process. And so those 42-inch monitors now display only the signature verification software program. There's no personally identifiable information. It's just an image of the envelope that was scanned through the sorter and an image of the top signature in the statewide voter registration system. And top signature just means the most recent signature. So signature reviewers are looking at the image of the envelope and the top signature, and OCVR is the statewide voter registration system. So they're making a decision based on that, and if that top signature doesn't match or they don't feel comfortable with it, they kick it out for additional review by a deputized, more experienced staff member. And at that point, we're looking at multiple signatures in the statewide system. And so we're opening up that transparency for observation. It realistically is better for in-person observation. If you get a chance to watch the live stream, today I have the live stream pointed at the signature review room. We're working on signature review today. And so you can see what's happening, but it's not really an up-close and in-depth. You're not seeing the full screen ahead of you, but we are open for in-person observation, so folks can come in and monitor that if they'd like. I really just want to give a shout out to technology services, but specifically Joey, AJ, Ryan. We joke that we should set up an office for them because they've been over at the elections building so frequently and have really helped us with getting deeds and records moved in, moved everything around, got us set up. So I'm really appreciative of them. And to round out this meaningful observation initiative, this year I created a passport for in-person observation, and I'm so excited about this little passport. It has like all of the 8 steps, and it's in line with our meaningful observation process. And when people come in to observe and they observe each of the 8 steps, they get a stamp just like you would on your passport. And then at the end, after they've observed all 8 and their passport is completely filled, I'll sign off on it, and it says, I hereby certify that so-and-so dutifully observed the ballot processes for the May 21st primary election. So another hopefully fun way to get people more engaged in the process. And it really ties together with the whole 8-step process. So I'm excited about that. Ready for observers this election if anyone is interested. If you are affiliated with a major party, you can contact them and they will assign you. If you are just a regular person off the street that is interested, come in. I always have one space available for folks that I can assign to observe. And any candidates that are on the ballot can send someone to observe on their behalf. And so there's all of that information is available on our website as well. I've been really working closely with Devin Ashbridge. I talked about really needing to flood the zone with accurate information to kind of just combat all of the misdis and malinformation that's out there about elections. So Devin and I have been working closely, and we actually shot an ad or a commercial recently, and so if you've been on YouTube at all, you might have come across it, but we're really talking about transparency being a value for us and pointing to our website and all the tools that we've created. And as of this morning, Devin let me know that we've already had 10,000 views, and of those are people that have watched the whole 30 seconds. So that's exciting. They didn't turn it off right away. So I want to thank Devin for her continued support and really helping me get the word out on social media. And on Thursday, we're doing a media press tour where we're opening up the elections office to media so that we can educate them on the whole process. And really, that is beneficial in so many ways. We're educating the folks on what the processes are and opening up questions to them. But by educating them on what the processes are, when they hear or see something, they'll hopefully will say, well, that doesn't jive with what I understood because when I was there, we did this. So we're really just all about educating and getting the word out. I want to share that we introduced signature audits quietly last election. There's signature verification is always something that folks are concerned about, and I understand that concern. And so we quietly implemented, we had to figure out a way to get it done last election because we're innovating this auditing. And so this election, we've got a full process where we monitor all of the signature verification that our Tier 1 team are doing. So our election workers, they've all taken 2-hour signature verification training from a forensic documenter, forensic handwriting specialist is what the Secretary of State's office has contracted with him to provide training. In addition to that, we came up with our own comprehensive manual based on my years of experience in other states who I've been doing signature verification for 18 years. So we've really trained up our staff, and so we are monitoring the work that they do. And through that monitoring, if we feel like there's something unnatural or the rejection rate is too high or the exception rate is too high, then we'll do some real-time training with that person or reassign them to other work. And so it's subjective. A person is doing that review based on their training, so we're monitoring that. We're also auditing the automatic signature verification software program. So the automatic signature verification, or ASV, it looks at all of the ballot envelopes first, and it makes a determination of whether it's a perfect match or whether it needs additional review by a human. So everything that it says is a perfect match, we're auditing that to make sure that we agree. So we're auditing batches of all of the good signatures, and every rejected signature is reviewed by a human and then a Tier 2 human or a deputized staff member. So before we send that cure letter to a voter that says your signature doesn't match, it's been reviewed multiple times. And in addition, that whole cure process that we talk about, a challenge signature, we've heard some feedback that folks were like, we don't understand that process. Can you help us understand that better? What do the letters look like? What can we do to help? So on our elections, the main website, we have many, many accordion files that are listed there. I think there are 18 of them, and so we've numbered them to try to help folks understand when they call. So accordion number 9 says, let me read exactly what it says. My signature was challenged, how do I fix it? And under that, we provide the actual letters that we send out to folks and more information about signing your ballot. We have a Signature 101 graphic that says, you can't do a power of attorney, you can't sign for a spouse or a child. So we've provided some information there for folks. And then the letters are there in the event that a person didn't receive their letter, their signature was challenged. It's getting close to the deadline now. They contact the office and say, why hasn't my ballot been counted? We can say, oh, your signature was challenged and we sent a letter on this date. Well, I never got it. Go to the website, print it off now, sign it, take a photo of it, and email it to us. So it's there to be able to aid the voters that may have not have received their letter, but every voter, that has had a challenge is mailed a letter. And so we're just trying to provide some additional information. In my experience in close elections, after 15 days after the election, when the challenge list becomes available to the public, So for that first 2 weeks after the election, no one can see who has a challenged ballot. But there are many instances where candidates or parties may want to go out and chase those cures and get those folks to cure their ballots so that they can aid them in returning their ballot. So by having those available online, it also aids in groups that are trying to assist those folks as well. I wanted to talk about the ballot dashboards, and I see that Tanya has that up. I'm really excited about, obviously, we started this project in 2023. And so you can see over time, as each election is held, the data sets that are available for comparison will grow. And so I'm really looking forward to the primary election in 2028 so we can do an apples to apples comparison to see what the voter turnout was or what we can expect. And so, Tanya, do you mind clicking on the 2024? Thank you. So as of yesterday, we were at about 10% turnout. And I was going back through recent primary elections to see where we were at. And in 2020, at this time, we were at 9% turnout. And we ended up having 46% overall turnout for that election. So I'm really hoping that we can get to 50% turnout for this election. But we have it broken down with multiple views that you can take a look at. You can click on a precinct on the map and it'll show you the breakdown. You can click on a district and it'll show you the breakdown and the percentage. And I'm sure that you've all looked at this before, but I really am proud of this and I'm looking forward to the future and all of the data sets that are available. But we could not do this without Tina and Allie from the Data and Analytics Department. They are available whenever we need them. If we need to zhuzh this up at all, we will. They've been incredible. If I could just point to the challenged ballots area for a second. So far, we've received back 27,000 ballots. And if you look at the missing signature and the signature discrepancy, the numbers are incredibly low. In, I think, 57 signature discrepancies and 29 missing signatures. That's because we're not all the way through the process of signature verification. So the dashboard, there's a little disclaimer at the bottom that says this data is coming from multiple sources and the numbers aren't always going to match up exactly. So we go to the ballot collection drop boxes on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and you can see that on the tentative schedule of ballot processing. And so we got back, I believe yesterday, 8,000 ballots or so, and on the 10th, we got back 10,000 ballots. So we had a hiccup with our ballot sorter, and if you have one hiccup where it was acting a little funny, and so we said, we're not going to process any ballots today through the sorter. So it creates a bottleneck all the way down the system. So the number of returned ballots is accurate, but there's a backlog now probably of 15,000 ballots that are still going through the signature review process. And so once we finish that process, hopefully by today, we have staff that are working on signature verification today. The cures, the number in that challenge ballot section are going to change when I upload new data. So I think it's really helpful when folks understand what the numbers mean and where they're coming from and how the whole process and flow works. And I'm happy to walk anyone through it if they come to the office. I know I've done a couple of tours for folks, but I'm happy to do more. But this is all tied to our, just trying to be as transparent as we can. And I think that was it. I rushed through and I apologize, but we're a little busy.
Yeah, don't apologize. It's important, and I know this is our last elections update since Election Day is a week from today.
Yes,
and the board
it
is
is.
down that day, so
Yes.
we won't hear from you on Election Day. And so I do want to give commissioners time to ask any questions or make comments, but we'll also note we do have a 10:15 time certain, so we're a little behind, and that is a very important and significant item. So if there's anything that the board wishes to ask that may in particular benefit the public to hear a response from our clerk, I would invite comments now. Commissioner Senega.
Yes, thank you, and I'll be quick. Thank you for the tour that you took, Chair Trigger and I. It was great. Really appreciate your transparency. Quick question, where do results sit until Election Day? That's one of the questions I get asked.
Absolutely. Ballots are scanned. We start scanning on Monday before election, but we do not hit the tabulation button until 8 p.m. on election night. So there's no tabulation that is done. It is just ballots are scanned, and so they sit in a secure, air-gapped database until we push the button.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Commissioner Farr.
A quick question, a quick comment. 27,000 are turned in already as of this morning, I would guess?
Yes.
As of yesterday afternoon. And how many do we expect?
45% was about 160,000, I think, at last.
Okay,
Yep.
very good. So we still got a lot more.
We absolutely do. And we typically get the most of our ballots back the Friday before election, Monday, and on election night.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The last thing I wanted to say, you have an election nerd sticker
Yes.
on there. But my eyes, and I have pretty good eyes, to me it says election hero.
Oh,
I'll choose that designation.
thank you.
Thank you, Clerk. I have a question. When you mentioned, people might see that their ballot hasn't or hasn't been turned in. Can you let the public know how to find the ballot tracker and sign up for that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's through the Oregon Secretary of State's website, through Oregon Votes, and that ties directly to the statewide voter registration system. I will caution folks that that's not a real-time system, so there's a delay, sometimes up to 1 or 2 days. So they can always contact the elections office, either via email or by phone, and we will get that answer for them.
Thank you. And always appreciate the improved process around signature verification. I've shared before. I've had a signature challenge because I couldn't remember whether I used my middle name or not, or just middle initial. I also recently had someone get in touch with me who needed help because they had recently acquired a Bell's palsy, and their signature significantly changed, and they needed help fixing that. So there's all kinds of reasons for that. So thanks for helping them navigate that. You mentioned mis, dis, and malinformation. Can you just briefly describe the difference between those three?
Sure. The malinformation is the intention of misguiding folks. Misinformation is repeating something that you've heard that you don't know if it's exactly accurate. And the disinformation, I probably mixed those up, sorry, is again just intentionally, with the intent to do harm. You're just intentionally sharing information that you know to be untrue. The mal is the intent to do harm. Either way, it's sowing seeds of distrust in the process, and so the best thing that you can do is contact your local election official to get the correct information, because your local county election official is the trusted source, and they can tell you the exact answer that you need. Very quickly, the piece about people, not checking to see if something's true before they're sharing it is just as dangerous, because you look like, well, that's a very reasonable person that's sharing that, so maybe I should question this also. So it's really important to go right to the trusted source.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for all your work. I love the passport. We could rename your department Elections World, maybe, instead of Elections Department. Thank you. Appreciate you coming in on what is, I know, a very busy time for you.
Thank you.
And with that, I see, are we going to move ahead? Do we want to make an adjustment? I see our guests
We're still waiting
here.
for a couple folks from the city of Eugene for the 10:15
For the 10:15.
item, and so
Can we maybe split this item into presentation and then move to our
you want to
10:15
do
and then come back
7A,
for
start the
discussion?
presentation. Yeah, if you're
Does that work for
comfortable,
you,
just
Mr.
kind of,
Rickoff?
Because this one may take more than 15 or 20.
That's what I'm thinking. We have it as a 15 and 15. So does that work for you, Mr. Rickoff, to do your 15 presentation, then we can switch gears?
Certainly, Chair.
And then come back? Great. Thank you so much for your flexibility.
Thank you.
So this is item 7A. This is, welcome Greg Rickoff, our Assistant County Administrator and Director of Criminal Justice and Rehabilitation Services, to share with us about a new launch of a program and accepting a grant, and I'll turn it over to you for presentation. Thank you.
Chair Trigger, Commissioners, thank you very much. And I will be looking to you for your help. It's a rare day when, as the Assistant County Administrator, I have a chance to roll up my sleeves and actually immerse myself in policy. And I am, at heart, a policy wonk, so I could talk about this for quite a long time. I will need your prodding to keep me on track. I'm here today to talk about the Behavioral Health Deflection Program. We can't pass a law in Oregon without creating an acronym, so you'll probably be hearing at the state level BHD for the Behavioral Health Deflection Program. It's already caught on, and the behavioral health component is critical to this. This is the opportunity that many of us have been asking for. It's a tool to promote, encourage, and advance treatment at the moment when an individual's behavior brings the person to the attention of law enforcement officers. This has the potential to be transformative for the individual and the community. This is a proposal that we have asked for with the passage of ballot measure 110. We thought one of the pieces that was missing in that continuum were those community moments when somebody's substance use disorder or behavioral health disorder brought their behaviors to the attention of the community, and more often than not, it's law enforcement officers that get called to respond. But with ballot measure 110, there was a disconnect between that law enforcement response and their ability to push towards treatment. With the passage of House Bill 4002, that element has been corrected. This is not a tool for everyone. As a community, we will decide which unlawful acts are eligible for deflection and which are not. The final decision will be in the hands of the district attorney. And of course, the district attorney will be working with the courts, defense attorneys, and law enforcement to make that consideration. By and large, this is going to impact individuals with a low level of criminal activity. The livability concerns that we see out in the community. So as we delve into this, we'll be making a decision which crimes can be deflected and which crimes really cannot be deflected. Like I said, that'll be a community decision. I did want to give you one piece, the actual definition of behavioral health deflection as defined by HB 4002. It's a collaborative program between law enforcement agencies and behavioral health entities that assists individuals who may have substance use disorder, another behavioral health disorder, or co-occurring disorders, to create community-based pathways to treatment, recovery support services, housing, case management, and other services. The BHD program consists of grants awarded by the Criminal Justice Commission to counties and federally recognized tribes. Like the All-In program, this is a county-specific design, so we will be responsible and accountable for the construction, the creation of partnership, and the ultimate reporting back of metrics. The grants will run through us. The grant dollars will run through us. The vast majority of those grant dollars will be set out to our partners who can then do the peer support, peer navigation work, and the treatment work. We will need to fund the full system to make sure that works through state dollars. The HB 4002 is specific regarding counties' obligations to create, in collaboration with multiple partners, support and measure the success of the programs. HB 4002 is written to assist individuals whose behavioral health conditions, including substance use disorder, lead to interactions with law enforcement, incarceration, conviction, and other engagement with the criminal justice system. That's what we're trying to deflect. In short, the program is designed for individuals for whom treatment is a better option than jail. Oregon chose to base county programs on a lead model, law enforcement aided diversion. We're calling that law enforcement aided deflection. There are existing programs, and we're in the Pacific Northwest. We're looking to the city of Seattle and Marion County. Both programs are relatively new, less than 10 years, so we're still looking to see the data as it moves forward. Deflection, a quick definition, deflection is different than diversion. Diversion programs are effective. They exist right now. They're not new. They come in multiple forms, but they're designed for folks that are already involved in the justice system. So you'll see deflection in our treatment courts and other options. That's diversion. Deflection is meant to be prior to people becoming justice involved, or I should say further justice involved. So when somebody is running the risk of new possible charges, it's each individual law enforcement officer in every corner of the county who will have the discretion and authority to decide, do I cite, do I arrest, or do I deflect? That will put a lot of pressure on those law enforcement officers and on us to design a system that is truly clear, understandable for those officers. Deflection actually comes in many forms. Under Measure 110, it was designed so that people could self-refer themselves into treatment, that there could be social referral, active outreach, tantamount to individuals being encouraged by friends and family members or the agencies or social organizations they work with to seek treatment. We've had naloxone plus, which is basically when somebody is in medical crisis and there's been a response with treatment to save that individual's life. It's a great time to have that conversation with the individual about seeking treatment. And first responder prevention has been a significant piece of the Measure 110 response, so that should a fire and ambulance service be called, medical responders are there, any first responders on the site, and identifying this as a substance use disorder issue, they can help encourage that individual to refer into treatment. All of those are voluntary. What this does is really adds kind of a less voluntary option. It's law enforcement officer intervention. I'm going to try to keep track of time as I do this. Just a quick overview. This was signed into law on April 1st. You will note in the Budget Committee meeting later today, there was an initial attempt to articulate what positions we thought might be coming into the budget immediately. That was a really raw guess before this law was even signed into law. So we've got adjustments to that already. As I shared with you in a previous meeting, the first grant was due on April 22nd. We submitted at that time. That grant was awarded on April 30th. 20 counties out of the 36 chose to go that route. The first tranche of funds will be available, should you act today, will be available to us by June 1st, and that's the $949,977 we've been talking about. We will do this again with a second contract due on July 1st. So you will see me back, hopefully with the program manager at that time, should you, again, you act today. And we will be presenting you with the contract for an additional $949,000. Initially, these dollars are flexible. They can be used for staffing, planning, and initiating, and even running the program. So we have full discretion over this initial tranche of almost $1.9 million. The county's role, as I said, it's similar to the all-in. We are the host agency responsible for coordination, the development and administering and reporting on the program. We shall coordinate with all partners. The law is very specific. We must work with a district attorney, a law enforcement agency, a community mental health program, a provider from Behavioral Health Resource Network, one of our three. We, of course, will attempt to work with all three burns in Lane County. We may also include a treatment provider, a local mental health authority, tribal governments, a peer support organization, a court, a local government body. Just so you know, agencies that fit all those descriptions have already stated their desire to be involved. In addition to that, we need to make sure that we have a focus on that we are trauma-informed, that we are culturally and linguistically accessible, and there's a couple more categories there that slip my mind right now. The other piece that Measure 4002 requires is a program manager with discrete duties of coordinating this program, serving as a grants, convening the deflection program, and with the likelihood of 3 different partners, both a law enforcement partner, a larger community work group, as well as an internal staff team, and then will be responsible for managing the grant programs, tracking and reporting in the data. I think at this point, we're assuming that we'll have 4 different positions: program manager, grant coordinator who can help with contracts, data reports, and setting up the many team meetings that this will require. We will have a program navigator, somebody who's a peer support manager who can be the interface with those with lived experiences who will be our peer support individuals who will do the warm handoff. When an officer is making a decision to deflect an individual, it looks like our commitment will be that within 20 minutes, they will be joined by a peer support specialist who will do that warm handoff and will start that individual's pathway into treatment. We'll need someone to coordinate that work. We'll also need a justice system navigator, most likely in the district attorney's office, who can really work with if someone is not compliant, what then? What laws really are appropriate for deflection and what are not? We'll be answering those questions not only for all of the law enforcement agencies in the county, but we'll be working with the courts to ensure that there is accountability in the system, and that this continues to understand, and this continues to evolve at that time. So I don't think all the 4 staff positions will be within community justice, but we're looking at a 4-member team. At this point, the measure before you really has just that initial position of a program manager who can come in, sit down, and in the next week or so, meet with all chiefs of police in the area. He's already had a couple meetings with the courts, can sit down with the 3 burns and all of the treatment providers and the peer support individuals. It's a lot of work. It's happening now if we're going to hit the July 1st contract deadline. With that, I will stop. I believe I am 2 minutes from my 15 allotted.
Thank you so much. I'm sure there are more than 2 minutes worth of questions, but I also have not seen, oh, yes, and now I do see, no, I don't see City of Eugene folks. You said we were still waiting for, oh, okay.
Yeah, so if
Great.
you want to pause here and come back to this item, we can do that, sure.
Great, then let's do that. We will put that item on pause and jump ahead to item 8A, which is Order 24-05-14-08 in the matter of ratifying fiscal year 24-5 Regional Wastewater Program Budget and Capital Improvements Plan as approved by the Metropolitan Wastewater Management Commission. And let folks get organized at the table and then have the administrator introduce and turn it over to our panel.
Thank you, Chair, and I think, Matt, am I going to turn it over to you to lead the conversation?
Yes.
Okay.
I need to share the screen. I don't know if we have our PowerPoint pulled up yet or not.
Do you want Tanya to run it for you? Did you send it in advance?
I did, yeah.
It should be loaded on a laptop, and the instructions to share it are right next to you, laminated next to you.
Okay, I see it here. Yep. It's prompting me for an account. I can do my own, but I don't know if that'll.
What's it asking?
It's prompting me for an account, login.
Oh, you should just be able to hover over it, and you should get the screen should pop up with sharing your screen. Click share screen, and then choose your presentation, and then click share. I can pull it up too. It just will take me a second to find it because I don't have it open.
All right, I think I'll be able to make this work here. Let me. Perfect. Okay, it was prompting me for a login and an account, so got that out of the way. Apologies for that. So welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Matt Stouter. I'm the Executive Officer for the Metropolitan Wastewater Management Commission. With me today is Michelle Miranda, Eugene Wastewater Division Director, and Catherine Bishop, Springfield Environmental Services Program Manager, and we have Misty Inman support staff with us in the back. So we're here today to looks like we went forward. I'm going to adjust this real quick. Okay, here today to discuss the fiscal year 24-25 MWMC budget and capital improvement plan and ask for ratification from the board. I'd like to acknowledge Commissioner Farr, who is a great asset to our MWMC Commission and sits on the board with us and has for several years. So this morning, I want to talk to you a little bit about the history and partnerships of the MWMC. We'll do a brief overview of our regional facilities, and then we'll get into our regional budgets. We do a similar presentation each year, and I know board members, occasionally there's a new board member or two. You folks have been here for a number of years, so we can move through this a little quickly, but if you have any feedback for next year or the year after, if we're getting into too much detail or if you like the overview, just let us know. So this slide we show every year, and it talks a little bit about how MWMC was formed and what the reasonings for that was. In 1972, Congress passed the Clean Water Act. It was a monumental piece of environmental legislation it happened in response to the dramatic pollution in the nation's waterways. We show this slide and this picture in particular every year of the Cuyahoga River in Ohio burning. It burned multiple times from sparks that came off of a rail car and caught the river on fire. In response to that, in 1977, the cities of Eugene, Springfield, and Lane County formed MWMC, and doing so to take advantage of federal funding that was available to construct the wastewater treatment facility that we have on 410 River Avenue. That plant came online in 1984, and then in 1989, we opened our biosolids management facility. And then ever since then, we've been constructing capital improvements that help support water quality. I will note that in 2022, we were issued a new permit from DEQ to discharge to the Willamette. It contains a lot of new requirements that we need to meet. And then after that, this coming year, we are working on a new facilities plan. In 2004, we started a large facilities plan that guided us for 20 years, and we're working on right now completing a new facilities plan that will guide us for the next 20 years. As mentioned, we have a commission that Commissioner Farr sits on. This is the commission, a 7-member commission. There's a Eugene City Councilor, a Springfield City Councilor, and a county board member, and 4 citizen members. Commissioner Bill Inge is the Lane County representative that sits on our commission. We have a total asset value of about $450 to $500 million, depending on what you look at, what you characterize as assets. We serve the larger metro area there. Springfield is responsible for the administrative functions of MWMC, so we prepare the annual budget, we implement permit requirements, we implement our planning and our capital program, the planning and construction of our projects, and then communications and outreach. Eugene is responsible for all the operations and maintenance of our facilities. And we provide service to both domestic and industrial users, and then we also supply service to mobile waste haulers outside the urban growth boundaries. And so Springfield has staff that work on behalf of MWMC, and Eugene has quite a number. And so all told, we have about 99 to 100 staff that support this operation. I would note that the staff work on behalf of they work on behalf of MWMC. MWMC has no staff, but they contract with the two cities for services. Okay.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you so much for having us here today. I'm going to talk a little bit just about our treatment plant. We operate the facility 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We never shut down, which is a good thing. We're an advanced secondary treatment plant, and we've had 100% compliance with our DEQ discharge permit at a peak platinum level for 17 years. Our plant, we remove the solids, oxygen demand, ammonia, and we provide disinfection prior to discharge of the water to the Willamette River. And our average summer flows are between 25 and 30 million gallons per day. But we do have the capacity to treat up to 277 million gallons per day during wet weather events. As mentioned before, we have a biosolids management facility and biocycle farm. We own and operate over 600 acres off of Aubrey Lane at the biosolids management facility and Poplar Farm. Biosolids are collected in large lagoons on site, and they're processed and stabilized and used as fertilizer in cooperative agreements with area grass seed farmers. And also they're applied to our poplar trees as fertilizer. We maintain and manage the 3 large units of poplar trees. The total acreage is over 400 acres of trees, and we have about 88,000 trees on site. The 3 management units are harvested on a 12-year rotation before we replant. And we last harvested a unit in 2021. The end products from the harvest are used locally for either wood chips, veneer, or ceiling grills, tiles used in buildings. And also we have some milled board lumber at Bring Recycling that's for sale for folks. So.
Okay, our budget process begins back in December and then runs through now. It actually kind of goes all year long, it seems like, with budget. But in December and then in staff begins work, and in January we bring to the commission our key outcomes and performance indicators. The commission, they're listed here. They really drive our work. They're in alignment with our strategic plan. And we just showed those so that folks are aware of them, but that's kind of when the budget process starts. Yeah.
Okay, so having to do with the budget approval process, you can see that in April 12th, the MWMC finished the budget. In May 6th, it was ratified by the city of Springfield. May 13th, ratified by the city of Eugene, and we're here on May 14th to request a ratification by Lane County. This is the adopted rates that we have. If you look over to the far right, our rate for a single-family user is $31.91. It assumes about 5,000 gallons of wastewater treated for comparison to other communities. And our actual rate is adopted at 5.5 rate change effective January 1st, or July 1st, 2024.
And I would note, I noted this earlier for Eugene and Springfield, our commission takes the rate adjustments very seriously, and they look at that very carefully each year. There's been a number of things going on in the economy with inflation, cost of services and materials over the last couple of years, and so we're very sensitive to that. I would note in the last 12 years, our average rate adjustment has been about 2.8% over that given 12-year period. Inflation over that same time has been about 4%, and the cost of construction has been a little higher than that. We did a rate analysis this year, given our situation and where we're at with paying off some debt and funding our capital projects. We're at a little higher rate increase than we have been this year over the past several years, but we're going to be back in line with a more moderate rate adjustment in the next 3 to 4 years based on that analysis.
So looking at the chart, the overall operating budget includes an increase of 5.9% or about 1.4 million when compared to the prior year's adopted budget. The combined regional FTEs staff increased from 99.49 to 102.47, resulting in a 298 FTE increase of 3%. The personnel budgets combined reflect a 1.2% increase when compared to the adopted and amended budget. Materials and services budget combined reflects an increase of 5.4, and capital outlay has a one-time item at 5.9.
Michelle, did you want to comment on that? So our capital outlay budget fluctuates. It's not our capital program. It's a different pot of money. It fluctuates pretty wildly from year over year, depending on what the needs are. The 190% this year is because there's a little bit of work going on. Next year, if we had we may have a corresponding decrease of that amount.
Yeah, we had some one-time projects or funding for projects that needed to be done around life safety, fire alarms, upgrading those around the treatment plant. Also, some resiliency upgrades that were identified that needed to happen. We're doing a kind of an energy optimization study, and then also we are doing more collection system monitoring. So these are one-time dollars, and they equal the increase dollar amount is $725,000 increase. So for a total of 1.1 million about, but they're one-time projects that we identified as needing to be done.
So looking at the actual budget, the five-year comparison, you'll see off to the far right, the increase is 25.3 million, includes an increase of 5.9% or 1.4 million when compared to the prior year adopted budget. Actual expenses at the year end are less than budgeted amounts.
Okay. I realize that my slides here don't match my slides here. I missed it. Apparently when I printed this morning, there's a couple, I'm like, where did that come from? But I'll speak to this based on memory. So this is our five-year budget and five-year CIP. You'll note that there's a substantial amount of money being invested this year. The majority of these are plant performance improvement projects, and I'll speak to a couple of those projects in the coming slides. I would note that about $4 million for this year is related to asset management. Our plant is 40 years old and it's aging. This thing's got a mind of its own here. So we do have about $4 million programmed this year to replace secondary clarifier rake arms. There's a few vehicle replacements. There's other pumps and associated equipment that is needing to be replaced, and so that's the reason for the equipment replacement dollars, and you'll see that moving out over the next 5 years. Our 5-year total CIP for projects is 138 million, and it's 154 million total over the 5 years. So a substantial sum of money. These projects are large, and they span multiple years. So, for example, we'll talk about a couple of projects, but they're on the order of $15 to $20 million projects, big infrastructure that we're investing in, and we have to budget the money in year one to contract for those projects that'll last 2 to 3 years. Okay, one of the projects we've completed this last year, we completed several in the previous years. This project was a smaller project, but it's been ongoing for a number of years, is our Poplar Harvest Management Services project. As Michelle mentioned, we have 3 management units with Poplar. We harvest them on 12-year rotations, and we then subsequently replant them. We look at best management practices for establishing growth of the poplar, and then end uses. And so we've completed a full rotation of those 3 units, and we're moving this now to an operations project. So it's going to be managed exclusively by operations as just a standard practice, no longer going to be a capital project. But that first cycle has been completed.
A couple more projects that are in the works right now is our upgrades to our administration and operations building. So this is a continuation of projects to address our aging facilities. Our current building's 42 years old, I think, and the business needs and also building codes have changed. And we want to address service level goals that were identified in our resiliency planning efforts, specific to this area of our facility. This houses our employees and our operations control room. And we are upgrading it to operate, after a Cascadia zone earthquake. The status of that project right now, it's at 100% design, and the anticipation is we're going to go out to bid advertising this summer. And it'll probably take about 2 years to complete the project. The other project I'd like to mention here is our improvements to our aeration basin system. So that's part of our secondary treatment process, and it removes solids and nutrients for us, and it's integral to meet permit limits. But we're updating aging equipment and systems, everything from piping, electrical, communication systems, technology, blowers, HVAC system, and we're doing that for reliability, performance, and energy efficiency.
Okay, one additional project that we'll talk about is our electrical switchgear project. This is the main electrical switchgear at the plant. It was installed in 1983. It doesn't look like a whole lot, but it's an expensive project to replace. This takes utility power and provides it to power all of our facilities via switches. So the main switchgear and the associated electrical transformers have reached the end of their, I think I have this somehow on a auto advance. Have reached the end of their useful service life, and we're going to be upgrading and replacing that equipment. I was just looking for the number, but I'll find it in a minute. I'm thinking this is on the order of $14 million in that ballpark. But these projects, while they don't look like much, are fairly expensive. It's amazing the amount of work and technicality that goes into some of these projects. So the last slide we have for you is a kind of a feel-good slide. I wanted to put this in here for Commissioner Farr. It's kind of an accomplishment/initiative slide. So we won a couple national awards this year, and we have some initiatives coming up that we're expanding on, and I wanted to speak briefly to. So I'm going to speak to Clean Water University. We've won some awards for other programs as well, but our Clean Water University program, we bring fifth grade students from around the area, from Eugene, Springfield, and Bethel school districts out to the plant, and we have a two-day event where we pay for the busing. They come out and they participate in a number of activity games, and then they take a tour of the facility and they learn about the water cycle, clean water, stormwater, wastewater, etc. We won an award from the Pacific Northwest Clean Water Association for this program, and then we won a national award from the National Association of Clean Water Agencies for this program as well. So that was pretty cool to see that recognition. Our communication staff, among others, have worked very hard on this program. And we're excited to talk about this next year. We're going to be expanding it. We right now have had the capacity to accommodate 10 schools, and we're moving it to 3 days to expand it to 15 schools. We have a goal to try to hit every school area, every school in the district in the future, but it's a challenge with staffing and getting volunteers to support it. But it's a very exciting program that's held usually in the first week of October. And if anybody's interested in volunteering, I can put the word out through Commissioner Farr for that program in the coming year. And so with that, we're happy to answer any questions about our budget. I think you have the budget in your packet. We talked at a high level today. So any questions that you have, we're happy to answer. And then we would ask that you consider approval of, that the board consider the approval of the order ratifying our budget for this coming year.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Stouter and Eugene and Springfield Partners. We appreciate you. And I can't remember if you said this at the top. The reason we hear this, it's part of our intergovernmental agreement that,
yes,
that the body have a presentation and consider ratification of your budget. So with that, I'll turn it over to the board to see if there are any questions. Commissioner Farr.
I'm going to be as brief as I possibly can. It will be quite brief. There's so much to talk about. Thank you first off for Clean Water University. It really is a cool program because kids take that home. For most of us, we don't even think about MWMC, or the tremendous work that goes into just making certain the pipes flow, and when we flush our toilet, put stuff down the drain, it goes away and we never have to see it again. It's pretty remarkable. But I'm not going to bury my lead. My lead is you, Catherine. Catherine Bishop announced at the last meeting that she will be retiring, and the last MWMC meeting was your last meeting with the MWMC. Like any organization, when you look through the organization, you see faces that seem to embody the organization and embody the stability of what is a very stable organization. You have been that for the entire time that I've been there, and I believe about 15 years, is that correct?
Close.
But Catherine, you've been reporting on the budgets and making certain that everything runs smoothly and runs cleanly, and I want to applaud you for the work that you have done. You make everything seem easy, and it's not easy. So thank you. The other thing on personnel is you didn't mention the ice storm, but during the ice storm, most people in the metropolitan area didn't have any problem flushing their toilets. How did that happen?
That was a monumental effort from the Eugene wastewater staff, and Michelle could speak to that, but they were deployed in Springfield especially. I mean, they had a bunch of work to do at the plant, and then in Springfield where there was limited power, they had generators out and were keeping pump stations functioning so that in addition to everything else people were dealing with, they at least didn't have to deal with sewer backups in their basement.
And so nobody noticed that any problems, because there were no problems because of the planning ahead, preparation, and being ready for an emergency and handling it when it did happen. That's something that we do talk about, what happens with an emergency. And Lane County is going through insurance costs right now, and at MWMC we're going through the price of insurance and how much do we need to insure to make sure that in the event of a catastrophic event that we'd still be able to maintain the services that we provide. The other thing I wanted to ask about really quickly, we used to burn methane, right? There used to be a big flare out there. What do we do with that methane now?
As you're aware, yes, we have a renewable natural gas project that we brought online about almost 3 years ago. We just reported on that actually to the Eugene City Council last night, and that is a success story. So we are taking that natural gas and we're putting it in the transportation fuel market. The brown gas sales are going to Northwest Natural, and then the environmental attributes are being credited to us and are being paid to us, and we're using that as a source of revenue. I believe we've collected about $3.5 million to date. It was a $14 million project, but we expect to pay back in 8 to 12 years, depending on what happens in the market. And then that source of revenue is going to be a source of revenue for us moving forward that'll help us in various capacities.
And it's renewable natural gas that is going into the system that people who do use natural gas
To your point, we were using about 50% of it to power our facility previously, but the other 50% of the methane was just being flared to the atmosphere, and so that's no longer happening.
And in other parts of our management systems, we're looking to capture methane the best way that we possibly can. We'll talk more about that in different meetings. Only two other things I'd like to mention very, very quickly and that is that the Commission is very responsive to the needs of the different jurisdictions that make up the MWMC. And when I first got on board, we talked about tiny homes and the cost to bring tiny homes online. MWMC has done a great job of paying and forgiving SDCs and development charges for tiny homes inside the metropolitan area. Bravo on that work. And then the last thing that I would mention is that something that you did talk about ever so briefly, but the reason that I was intrigued by MWMC in the first place is what seems to be a very seamless intergovernmental operation. As seamless as it gets, nationally acclaimed, the seamlessness between three large governmental bodies, and to the point that people not just don't notice it, but people outside of the organization recognize how well you do as the leadership team and as the staff that are involved in the management of MWMC. It really is pretty phenomenal. And Chair Trieger, I could go on for a long time about the effectiveness of this organization, but really you recognize the effectiveness every time you run water down the drain, and it goes down and you never see it again. So thank you very much.
Not any other, Vice Chair.
Yeah, just Real quick, I just want to tell you, in the sea of numbers that we're all swimming in budget season, I want to just thank you for a really easy to understand and concise budget information, how you presented it. It was the best one I've seen so far to date. So whoever does that, kudos to them. And Ms. Catherine, your first month is going to be the toughest, but enjoy that retirement.
Thank you. With that, I'm happy to entertain a motion.
Thank you, Chair Trigger. Then I will move. As soon as I get back to my motion, I apologize for that. I'll move, so busy thinking about the work that you do and thinking about the beautiful poplar wood that is available for sale at Bring. So if you want beautiful poplar wood, go down to Bring, and it's for sale down there. Chair Trigger, I move order 24-05-14-08 in the matter of ratifying the fiscal year 24-25 regional wastewater program budget and capital improvements program as approved by the Metropolitan Wastewater Management Commission.
Is there a second? Thank you. It's been moved by Commissioner Farr, seconded by Vice Chair Lovall. Any discussion of the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Approval of Order 24-05-14-08 in the matter of ratifying the fiscal year 24-25 Regional Wastewater Program Budget and Capital Improvement Plan as approved by Metropolitan Wastewater Management Commission. Thank you to all of our partners for presenting and for the work you do every day.
Thank you for your support.
So we have been adjusting the agenda on the fly, and what I'd like to do, colleagues, is move to item 8B, which is just a 5-minute item, and welcome Alex Dreher, who's here for our Policy Director, Steve Adams, today for just a brief item, and then we will hear from our Public Health Officer, and then we'll return back to Mr. Rickoff for the conclusion of his item. Welcome, good morning.
Thank you, Chair Trigger, Vice Chair Lovell, Commissioners. I'm joining you today in support of a brief agenda item appointing a representative of this board to the Intergovernmental Task Force on Marine Renewable Energy convened by the state of Oregon and the Federal Bureau of Ocean Energy Management. Typically, the board appoints representatives during the January organizational meeting, but this task force was not on our standing list of active bodies. Our Regional Solutions Coordinator, Courtney Flathers, noticed that former Commissioner Jay Bozovich was still listed as the Lane County representative and reached out to us to refresh our representation as they restart this process. So by adopting this order, you would appoint Commissioner Senega to the Intergovernmental Task Force.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff on this item? Seeing none, I will look for a motion. Vice Chair?
Chair, I move to approve the appointment of Commissioner Ryan Senega to the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management and the State of Oregon Intergovernmental Task Force in Marine Renewable Energy.
Second. Thank you. It's been moved by Vice Chair Lovell, seconded by Commissioner Buck. Is there any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify with an aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Approval of Order 24-05-14-09 in the matter of appointing Commissioner Ryan Senega to the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management and State of Oregon Intergovernmental Task Force in Marine Renewable Energy. Thank you and congratulations, Commissioner Senega.
Thank you.
And now, there is a doctor in the house, so we will welcome him. We'll welcome our Public Health Officer, Dr. Pat Ludke, and our Director of Health and Human Services, Eve Gray, for an update for us on the current pertussis outbreak in our community. Thank you. Good morning and welcome.
Well, I will turn it over to you, Dr. Ludke. We, of course, were here last week with Dr. Warren. Dr. Ludke was taking some much-needed time on the East Coast. So he is back to give you an update on where we are now.
Wonderful. Thank you, Eve. Thank you, Chair Trigger. I understand Tanya has my slides, and I'm seeing them come up, which is wonderful. I feel underdressed. I don't have my vote sticker yet.
We got him.
Shame on
Did
me.
you vote?
I'm working on it. I need to turn in my ballot. Okay, so as promised from Eve, we're going to do an update. I have a lot of slides. I'm going to go pretty fast. Tanya, I hope your advanced finger is ready to roll. Next slide, please. So this is our current status. I'm always impressed by the savvy and the expertise of this board. We have an epi curve, and as you know, we can have an epi curve based upon the day the test was done, based upon the day the symptoms began, based upon the day the test result came to us. This is an epi curve based upon symptom onset. And you see we stuttered a bit at the beginning of March, one case at a time. So those first blocks are just one case, and then we started to see 2 and 2 and 2 and significantly more. In the lower left, you can see the EpiLink cases. Early on, we only had one school involved, and then we had a couple schools and a university, and then we had a few households, and they were not epidemiological linked. And we're probably approaching an inflection point where there's more transmission out in the community, not limited to simply 1 or 2 households or 1 school or 2 schools. We're up to 39 cases that we put in the confirmed presumptive bucket. We do have a couple suspect cases that may become confirmed, we'll see. Yesterday we got a new baby, 5-month-old, which is always sad for whooping cough. Many of us in the adult age, we get whooping cough, we have a chronic cough, so-called 100-day cough, and we're otherwise fine at the end of that. It's babies who get severe disease and die from this disease, so that's concerning to see a 5-month-old. We're not alone in this. Next slide, please. The state has many cases, which you'll see in a moment. We have some demographic data. Our demographic data is never perfect. People don't always fill out every line or answer every question. But we have a preponderance of males right now. There is no reason for this disease why it won't eventually become roughly 50-50. That's what we typically see over the course of a whooping cough outbreak. Most of the cases are in the younger age group, adolescents and young adults. That's pretty common. We see immunity wane in this vaccine. It's not one of our best vaccines. We sure wish it was better, but it's not. That's the vaccine that we have. Race, ethnicity, predominantly white Caucasian, a fair number of Hispanics, and we always have a few people who choose not to answer those questions, which of course is up to them to do so. Next slide. So this is our epi curve from 2018. Some of you will remember a very large outbreak in 2018, hundreds of cases here in Lane County. That's the dark blue, so much higher bars. And then Catherine Carvelli, our infectious disease epidemiologist, superimposed in orange what's happening right now. So the numbers are lower, which is good. We think that early action by our partners at the schools and by the households and keeping people safe have really made a difference so far. We were expecting perhaps some higher numbers, but I think we're being both lucky and good at this particular time, which is nice to see. It's a little disconcerting, though, that it's was very predictable. Those of you who have been reading, following some of our messages to the clinical community or the lay community, we knew that we were entering a risk time period. This is a cyclical condition, and even though people are still, to some extent, wearing masks and perhaps decreasing their risk a little bit as some of the pandemic residual, we're still a community at risk. This is not a great vaccine. Immunity wanes over time, and we knew it was coming. And it's interesting to see it overlay because it's really almost exactly the same time in 2018. First cases in March and, some escalation in April. Next slide, please. As I noted, we are not alone. The other county that's significantly impacted is Clackamas, but this is Oregon data, so not Lane County data. And you can see we had a fallow period, 20, 21, 22, 23, and then a slow increase, and that's where we are today, a bit over 100 as a statewide total, and that number will surely go up, unfortunately. Next slide, please. So overall, why pertussis, why now? I alluded to a few reasons, and I'll just go through them a bit more in detail. The first is a cyclical nature. Next slide. You can see in Oregon, this again is Oregon data, not Lane County. The yellow is total cases not hospitalized, and the blue is hospitalized cases. And every 3 to 7 years or so, unless there's a pandemic in between, we typically see a new cycle of whooping cough cases. And you can see in the 3, 4, 5 time frame, we had an increase in cases statewide, and then 6, 7 years later, it happened again. And if you add 6 years to that, you get 2018. Next slide. And this is what happened in 2018. This is Lane County data. We had a lot of cases, as I alluded to, around 300 cases that were confirmed or presumptive. Next slide, please. So pertussis has been around for a long time. We really don't know how long, but certainly perhaps hundreds, if not thousands of years. And this is Oregon data for the last 100 years. Next click, please. Somewhere in the mid-1940s, we got the first trivalent tri-vaccine, diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis. We put those 3 agents together. And of course, if you think back to this country in the 40s, not every school system, not every clinic was giving this vaccine then. It was a slow rollout. But by the time we had a significant rollout, we didn't eliminate the disease, but we went from a couple 100,000 cases per year down to under 10,000. Next click. So we had school requirements for tetanus and diphtheria in the early 80s. Next click. And then we had the acellular pertussis vaccine. I'll spend a moment on that. The A is acellular. The DTP vaccine was a very good vaccine, and the pertussis component had a lot of antigen in it, which means it provoked a pretty significant immunological response. Unfortunately, too much antigen sometimes causes things that parents, like a febrile seizure, don't like to see. And while infections can cause febrile seizures, any insult can cause it in some kids if they have a lower type of seizure threshold. So the vaccine was reformulated. Instead of using the whole cell of the bacteria, they chose only 3 particular chemicals, and we got an acellular vaccine with just those 3 chemicals. That's a good thing in terms of side effects. It's not quite as robust for immunity. So you can see, after being flatlined for a while, in the 2005 timeframe, we had a pretty significant outbreak as immunity waned from that less effective vaccine. And then 6 years later, we saw it again. Next slide, or next click. That's the Tdap, the booster vaccine for adolescents and adults. We got a new test, polymerase chain reaction. You've heard about PCR a lot during the pandemic, the PCR test for COVID. Very, remarkable technology, but we finally got that for pertussis. Next click. And then school requirements in Oregon occurred around the Tdap vaccine for adolescents. Typically age 11, 12 is when that's recommended for a booster. Next slide. All right, so the second reason we're seeing it now is we're a community at risk. Now, our vaccines didn't plummet during the pandemic, but it's really hard to give a vaccine over a computer screen. We moved to telehealth. That's just a challenging thing to do. Every vaccine dropped a little bit during the pandemic for kids in this state, except for hepatitis B, which was essentially stable from 2019 to 2022. We don't quite have the updated 2023 data confirmed. The preliminary data shows that it probably dropped another 1% to 2% for most of the vaccines. Again, it didn't plummet, but it dropped a little bit. Next slide. The DTaP vaccine for kids across race ethnicity, it dropped in all the race ethnicities except for Hispanics. It stayed about the same. You can see it dropped a little bit. Again, it didn't plummet, but it is harder, or it was harder during the pandemic to get vaccinated if a parent or guardian wanted to get their kid vaccinated. It's just more difficult during that time, and we're seeing that data showing that the vaccine rates have dropped a bit, so consequently we're a community at greater risk. Next slide. So decaying immunity. I mentioned the fact that we had the whole cell vaccine, which was really quite robust, gave good immunity for a long period of time, but again, too many side effects. We got the acellular vaccine, and we think somewhere around 5 years or so out from the vaccine, it's almost a coin toss of whether you're immune or not. The immunity decays fairly quickly. So there have been questions for some time, do we get a better vaccine or do we have a booster dose like we do with tetanus every 10 years? We recommend you get a tetanus booster. Nowadays, you can get your 10-year booster for tetanus and include the pertussis component. You can get that Tdap vaccine. But there are a couple candidates that are in the pipeline for a better whooping cough vaccine. Perhaps they'll come to fruition. We'll see. Next slide. So anytime we have an outbreak, we have statutory support and administrative rule support for protecting the community. I think you've seen these rules before for other outbreaks. Pertussis is one of the listed conditions, the administrative rule. The reason I put this in there is because it's a bit of a challenge in some ways. We cannot exclude an employee from work for a vaccine for reasons of employment. So that's teachers. However, we can exclude unprotected students. So we get questions on occasion from the community, why is the teacher able to go back to work and I know they're not vaccinated, and yet my child cannot go back to school who is unvaccinated. This is the reason why. The statute prevents us from doing it unless there's a federal or state mandate for the vaccine, which happens on occasion. It happened in the pandemic with the COVID vaccine. The feds mandated it for the military and others, and our state mandated it for healthcare workers, but that has since lapsed, and we don't have a mandate for a pertussis vaccine for employees. Next slide, please. So where do kids get pertussis? There are multiple studies. I included 3 of them that are publicly available if anyone wishes to go in and take a look. Many studies, of course, you have to belong to the journal or pay money to get it, and these are publicly available studies. But many studies showing that 50 to 60% of kids, we've confirmed that they get it from their primary family. So mother, father, sister, brother. Not everybody does. There's a few different types of or serogroups of pertussis circulating, and when we do that deep molecular testing, we find out that this particular child has it, and it's different than the one that the sibling has. But most of the time, it comes directly from a first-degree relative in the same home. Next slide. So a few final slides, and then a case presentation I wanted to talk through. We are not going to have tens of thousands of cases of pertussis in Lane County. We're probably going to have hundreds, and we want to make sure that the community is ready and is able to prevent the risk to themselves and their family members and their loved ones. In a typical year in this country, we have, between 10 and 30 deaths from pertussis. That's not many for an entire country. Almost all of them are babies, infants, typically 3 months and under in age. They cannot be protected. Their immune system is not able to make immunity, and they can get some immunity from mom if mom got the vaccine in her 3rd trimester, which is the recommendation. And those children are almost always protected, but that doesn't always happen. Some people don't have access to health care and the vaccines. In Oregon, we had very, very few cases, as you saw on that 100-year timeline of pertussis. During the time we had the DTP, and then when the acellular came out, we started to see that decaying immunity. And we've had those regular outbreaks every 5, 6, 7 years now. Next slide. So the school environment where this outbreak started is really a unique place. We have a study from the Journal of Pediatric Infectious Diseases that looked at 15 Oregon schools that were under-vaccinated in that outbreak in the 2018 timeframe. 243 exposed and under-vaccinated students in those schools were assessed for exclusion for protection of the remainder of their classmates and the teachers and volunteers in the school. 134 of them, a significant amount, chose to be vaccinated. They may have wanted to be vaccinated, but life got in the way. It's busy time being in school. 87 of them were ultimately excluded. I put a little red asterisk by that because they missed a lot of school days. In total, it can be typically a 21-day exclusion. 3 weeks is a long time to miss. So I think that's a problem. We always have to balance the benefits and the risks of these sort of actions. Of interest in why the school environment is unique is, this is yet another study showing it, of all of those excluded students, 0, despite there being some community transmission, ended up becoming positive for pertussis. The school environment is a unique place of intense transmission of whatever it might be, transmission of knowledge, transmission of viruses or bacteria. It's a unique environment. Next slide, please. So another study I think is really worth noting, and this is also a study from some Oregon researchers in the Journal of Pediatrics, was looking at persons from age 2 months to 10 years who had pertussis and then stratified them across various demographic pieces of data, including zip code. And looking at amongst the under-vaccinated cases, the median date of onset was about 117 days into the outbreak. And people who were fully vaccinated, it was 40-some days later. And this is an interesting look at the value of vaccine and sort of flattening the curve of when these outbreaks hit, and decreasing the impact on schools, on teachers, on families, and of course on urgent cares and clinics and hospitals. And this is data we've seen in other outbreaks with pertussis as well, that the vaccine, again, you've heard me say it several times, is far from our best vaccine. We'd love it to be as good as the measles vaccine, where 2 doses you get immunity and you're immune for life. That is not this vaccine. It's just a tough bacteria. But there's still benefit, even in an outbreak. There's benefit of getting vaccinated. Next slide. So another study, this is Cook County in Chicago, a large high school outbreak. Unfortunately, rapid spread to all the grades, so it wasn't limited to say, just science or just one classroom. It went through all 4, 9 through 12th grade. And the community opted initially to have the school use their resources to try to increase the vaccine rate and do appropriate cough surveillance and those sort of things to keep everybody protected. It didn't work very well. The vaccine rate didn't go up. And then local public health jumped in and offered clinics and made a big difference and basically stopped the outbreak, which doesn't always happen, but it was nice to see. Next slide. So last study that I will talk about, this is also from a couple Oregon researchers, Dr. Lico and Dr. Cieslak. Many of you probably know them. They're on the radio and TV all the time from OHA. And this is from the earlier 2012 outbreak, which was the largest outbreak Oregon has had since the 50s. It was a huge, huge pertussis outbreak. And this study, and again, this is available in CID, we call it Clinical Infectious Diseases, we call CID, that's the journal, showing that, again, vaccination during an epidemic can be quite valuable. It's not perfect, again, but it can really make a difference in even very large outbreaks. Next slide. So I'm going to finish with this illustrative case. Sometimes in public health we get accused of fear-mongering. We really don't like to do that. This is a kind of a scary case. And again, the number of infants who will get this disease is very small, but they can have severe disease with lifelong ramifications. And this is an example of that. This is an Oregon case. I want to thank Dr. Bill Koenig. He's a pediatrician in a county, 2 counties north of us. And this is a case he cared for as the public health officer and as a pediatrician. So we had a mom, healthy pregnancy, offered her Tdap booster vaccine during the 3rd trimester, which is what we want every mom to get. So the immunity goes to the baby. When the baby's born, the baby is protected until their immune system starts to work. The mom decided not to get it for whatever reason. At 35 weeks of gestation, there was a question of whether she had some type of infection in the lining around the baby, the chorioamnion. She did well in the hospital. She was sent home on day 3. Next slide. One day after discharge, the baby had some challenging breathing, and they did a blood oxygen rate. It was greater than 94%, which is kind of the cutoff where we start to get worried in adults even. No cough, and was sent home. Next slide. Returned the next day with worsening breathing issues, occasional desaturation. That's where you drop below that 94 level. The hemoglobin is no longer saturated with oxygen, so we call it desaturation. The testing was done for pertussis. Wonderful thing. The word was out that pertussis was around, and the group tested the child. Next slide. At 19 days old, presented to the local emergency department with an apparent life-threatening event, ALTE, really nasty event, but while in the hospital didn't have a cough. Little ones don't breathe a whole lot, and sometimes if their airways are really full of inflammation and mucus and things, they can't cough up much. But the clinical decision was to send the child home, and mom had a cough at this time now. Next slide. Day 24, respiratory distress, and unfortunately stopped breathing and needed to be transferred to a tertiary care hospital. Ended up in the pediatric intensive care unit. Next slide. Continued to deteriorate, went on what we call ECMO, which is basically where a machine breathes for you. Next slide. Was in the hospital for 3 months, discharged later, and had some serious sequelae, including had a stroke and some other challenges. Next slide. So overall case summary on that external extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, that external breathing, intubated for 75 days, had a stroke, seizures, all kinds of problems, and then had a 5-year follow-up. So this was several years ago. Next slide. And unfortunately, the 5-year follow-up, which I'll get to in a moment, this is Dr. Koenig doing an assessment on, how much was this hospitalization compared to the cost of a vaccine. Next click, please. So Tdap cost at the time was $64. It's a bit more now. Next click. And the hospitalization was a bit over $1.5 million. It's about $1.6 million. Next slide. Next click. That's 23,000 plus Tdap vaccines, unfortunately. Next click. And the 5-year follow-up. Unfortunately, the child is globally affected. The left-sided weakness will probably never run a marathon, sadly, and all kinds of ongoing problems, especially with muscle tone, hypotonia. Next click. So I'm going to stop there. Sorry to end with a bit of a downer, but I wanted to make sure you know that even though the numbers are very small, where we see severe disease, you can have severe impacts. And this is why we push pretty hard when there's outbreaks of this sort. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Dr. Ludke. Director Gray, did you want to add anything before I turn it over to the board?
Never make a presentation better than Dr. Pat.
Okay, thank you. To the board. Commissioner Buck.
Thank you, Chair. My question kind of revolves around daycare centers. Now, you had mentioned that the majority of this gets transmitted within the main primary family. But knowing that little ones are often at daycare centers, and I think there was one or more that was affected in this so far, what do you suggest that they do? Like, what are the steps, other than to be aware and to notify if you see any activity? But as you mentioned, in this case, the little one didn't necessarily have a cough, so you don't always know what's going on. So in our daycare centers around here, how are we advising them and other than notifying parents to watch out for the symptoms?
I think it's a good question, Commissioner Buck. And again, I can't stress enough that I wish this vaccine were better, but we still want to recommend the products, the tools that we have. So the first thing is that the primary prevention, to be vaccinated. And if you're eligible for a booster, get your booster. If you've had your primary series, which is 5 doses, it's a lot of vaccines, but the primary series of DTaP is 5 doses in little ones. And then in adolescence or in adulthood, if you miss the adolescence, to get your booster. So that's number one. Number two is we do want people to be ever vigilant for cough syndromes. And a cough is not always whooping cough. Of course, it could be asthma, it could be allergies, it could be heartburn even in some people with, acid reflux that can trigger the cough center. So we really want to make sure that people are vigilant for cough illnesses. And those are really the big two. Now, of course, this is an easy bacteria to kill, but just soap and water. So washing your hands and such is a good thing. We rarely, in fact, I can only think of once or twice in my career in public health where we closed down a facility or closed a school for this. We just don't do that. Typically, by the time we get enough cases, the cow's out of the barn, the cat's out of the bag, whatever the metaphor is, and there's just not value in that. In fact, there's more harm. So the prevention side is really the most important.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments for staff? Great. Well, very much appreciate. It's always good to see you and always terrible to see you, depending on the topic. But really appreciate you, and hopefully folks watching are taking this seriously and getting themselves and their kiddos on schedule if they're not vaccinated. We are down for the next 2 weeks, so I think as a board we will look for emailed updates if there's anything in the next 2 weeks that we need to know. And really appreciate you coming over this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
And so, ping-ponging around on our agenda, we are back to item 7A. To conclude that, I'll welcome Mr. Rickoff back to the table. And for anyone watching, we heard a presentation on an order before us to consider approving a grant and accepting just $949,771 from Criminal Justice Commission to create our Lane County Deflection Program. So Mr. Rickoff presented on the needs and requirements for setting up our deflection program and some of the early envisioning for that. And unless folks need any other recap from Mr. Rickoff, I will just turn it back to the board for comments, questions on that item. Commissioner Buck.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Goff. I'm actually kind of excited about this particular program. I know it's newly forming and around the state, although I kind of get the idea that Lane County is likely going to be leading in this particular program, just because we've been doing so many advanced programs to supplement jail time with other more holistic recovery activities, which I find this at. My question specifically is, you had mentioned that officers themselves will likely be determining whether this is a person that can go and go into the deflection program or not. And what I anticipate is, if that's not crystal clear, that there are going to be people that protest that that decision was or wasn't made the way that it should have been made. So how do we determine so that these officers aren't put in a precarious position to be like, well, I thought they needed to go into the deflection program, but maybe this person is a higher acuity than originally presented, or the exact opposite. Somebody didn't go into the deflection program when perhaps that would have been better. So I know that this is still in formation and perhaps this is still being discussed, but these are, human beings and people's lives, and it's messy. And how do we really make sure that these decisions are being made to the best of our ability?
Chair Trieger, Commissioner Buck, you've got to the heart of the matter. That is exactly the question that all of the police chiefs I've had a chance to talk to are asking of us. And I can say at this point, we need to design this together. We think the DA and certainly the other prosecuting attorneys, as well as both our presiding judge McAlpin and the municipal court judges, are very interested in helping to provide clarity. But this will be sitting down with the chiefs and their team to make determinations about not what only is covered, but where that surety, where that clarity can be established. And then we will both train for that and provide materials for that. Marion County gave a great example of a card that officers have on their dashboards that gave them criteria to help them make that determination in the field. And I think there will be some trial and error, but it's something we will absolutely have to pay attention to. I hope to come back with a better answer to that question as we've had a chance to.
I have one other follow-up question. Thank you for that. You had mentioned in the presentation that when an officer's on site with somebody and trying to make that determination, if they determine that this person could pursue the deflection program, that somebody would come within like 20 minutes. But in the rural community, that would likely take longer than 20 minutes, just the drive time alone, let alone all the analysis, the call-in, and how many people are like ready at the call to come out. So how do we see that actually operationalized in the rural setting?
I see us building that over time. This has to work for all four corners of the county. I think the good and bad news is we have individuals with lived experience who could be qualified peer support navigators in every community. And we will need to look at building out that capacity. I think there might be times where an officer will get somebody on speakerphone and they'll have a three-person conversation between the individual that's been stopped, the officer, and a peer support specialist to start that contact. Our concern, of course, is it doesn't take more than one or two fails for an officer to say, this is not worth my time. I'm simply going to go ahead and charge or transport. It'll be up to us to find the capacity in the communities, and I think we can do it. I don't think we can do it quickly or easily, but I think it can be done.
Thank you.
Commissioner Farr.
Thank you. And Commissioner Buck, great questions. I guess you really did cut to the heart of the matter, is that the decision-making is right at the point of contact, and the point of contact can be a very confusing, not a very confused situation. My question is beyond that. You know, I love the deflection program. I love the concept of it, but in practical terms, a great deal is being placed on the county as far as where do we take and how do we treat, and how do we accommodate for the fact that when a potentially arresting officer who is using the deflection program instead doesn't have a place to send them, what happens then? Now, that's a rhetorical question. Now, you don't have an answer to that because we simply don't have the facilities, and we do know that we're working with Peace Health, aggressively working with Peace Health for one to develop facilities, and we're developing facilities through our own internal programs, but we're still in a dearth, and it really is a matter of us not having the resources to have enough facilities. So I'm not going to ask you how do we respond to that, because you don't have an answer other than we'll develop what we can and we'll work with the agencies that we can. But really you suggested that what happens when an officer doesn't have a successful deflection. what is that officer going to do next time? And I guess that's just what we need to be prepared for, Greg.
Chair Trigger, Commissioner Farr, again, you're exactly on point. The number of times when we have gathered the district attorney, Clint Riley, municipal court judges and myself, and have said to ourselves, dang, that stabilization center's looking really valuable right now. We don't have the capacity. One of the things that we're called upon is to build that capacity with the help of state dollars, to build out the treatment capacity and build out that peer support. But that's exactly what's keeping me up at night.
And in fact, don't let it keep you up at night, because it's not going to go away in the near future, because the robust infusion of state dollars, it will take that. And not just state dollars, but everything that we as a county can leverage. One thing that gives me optimism is the fact that you pointed out that it's a similar model to the all-in Lane County model, that it's county-centered. And the all-in model worked very, very well. That gives me optimism that we can find a way to make this work. As long as we do have the infusion of dollars, we do have the coordination that really only the county can provide. And that's what we saw with All In, and that's what gives me enthusiasm and optimism for the fact that this ultimately is going to work. We're going to have stumbles, we're going to have bumbles, we're going to have thumps and thuds, but this ultimately is going to work. Thanks.
Commissioner Seneca.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I swear we're all sharing notes up here. I've got a lot of questions, and it's along the same lines. I know we don't have answers for them yet, but this is how we work through it as a team. I will say that you shared some interesting news with me weeks back, maybe a month now, and the news was so positive it gave me goosebumps, which means you're headed down the right path. So there's a lot of hope here, and from the Public Safety Coordinating Committee, one of my concerns that we can work on as a group is getting everybody involved. Because everybody's supposed to be at the meetings, all our chiefs, and our sheriff's always there. But there's a lot of people that don't make it. So when I look at this program and Eugene police officer or a Florence police officer, around the county, we're gonna have to really focus and figure out how to get this collaborative group. I'm the vice chair of that committee, so who do you blame for not having good attendance? But that's gonna be a robust conversation that maybe this deflection program comes to the PSCC, and maybe that kind of helps rejuvenate maybe not relationship, but those talking points to get everybody there. So it'll be interesting to see where all this fits in and how that works out as we continue this path. Thanks, Mr. Rick.
Chair Trigger, Commissioner Seneca, if I may just give you a little bit more good news. One of the plans that is afoot is both Clint Riley and Deputy DA Chris Perosa are planning to make the rounds to visit all of the police chiefs in the county in their home offices and have this exact conversation. So I think we have the right team going to meet with the right individuals to get this started. And I can't help but think that those will be productive conversations and can go a long ways towards establishing that first initial bridge. To have the Deputy DA and someone of Clint's stature together talking about their commitment to this program, I think will help build that initial trust so that folks are willing to come to the table, roll up their sleeves, and help us design this so it works for them.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that. And that is some of the news, and that's the direction we need to head. And that I'm really excited about is that recalibration of focus on what the PSCC is there for. So thank you.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Greg, thank you for all the stuff you brought here. The burden of training you said earlier was going to be on the officers, and I couldn't agree more with you. But I want to just point out that a person that's had lived experience with this kind of thing, where their own son's been picked up many times in the middle of the night, no place to go. My experience is those officers that the burden is going to fall on, those are the people that are willing to take on that burden for the necessary good of humanity. My experience with the Eugene and the Springfield Police interactions with my own son was professional, it was compassionate, it was humane. They sought to do what was best, but like Commissioner Seneca pointed out, there was nowhere to take them. So I think right now is really the perfect vortex of everyone to get on the same page and say, okay, we've got some funds, we've got the desire, and we're at a point now where we've got to make some tough decisions about what we're going to do with these folks once we pick them up. I'm encouraged that my harping on, rather than Lane County being just a housing and enabling kind of situation, I'm encouraged that we're becoming focused on a recovery county. Come to Lane County if you've got issues and you get picked up, we're going to make sure you head into a path of recovery. And I couldn't be more excited about that. As a parent and a loved one who is under duress and stress, not being able to direct them or civilly commit them rather, or get them encouraged or forced into a lane of travel where they could get good. I think this is a great step in the right direction that would alleviate the burdens that we live through of 2:30 in the morning, watching your loved one walk into the depths of the night and not seeing them for 3 or 4 days and not knowing what's going on. So this gives me great hope. So I appreciate this very much, and I'm in total support of it.
Chair Lovell, thank you very much. I'm hoping that one of the tools at 2:30 in the morning will be the ability to provide that warm handoff, that a peer navigator who has had that street experience, has had those same challenges, will be able to provide not only support for the individual, but support for the officer, and understanding that we can do better. And I'm hoping that we bake into this the tenacity of finding those solutions, that we can be a recovery county. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, lots of things touched on that I had made notes of. One thing I want to say first is to sort of pull it back big picture. The voters approved Measure 110, and from what I have seen so far, the greatest challenge to that being more successful than it was the implementation gap. That the law changed immediately, but the funding didn't flow quickly enough. There wasn't a built-in lag time to allow the funding to get out the door, the burns to stand up, to put their programming together. And so that's really, I just don't, personally, and for the voters' sake, I don't like to think of it as a failure, Measure 110. It was a failure of implementation and timing and order of operations of the funding and standing up the programs. And then that critical piece of it being completely voluntary, whether people engage with treatment and how they were given information or resource about what those voluntary treatment options were. I think those were the failures, but that's, when you're trying to change giant systems, not surprising. That the new system was created with different gaps than the old system had. Hopefully this is going to be one way to start filling in some of those gaps, and I'm really encouraged by how quickly the funding got out the door. We were able to respond. We were able to secure, once we hopefully take this vote, receive the funding, and start standing up the program. I know there's a really good learning group amongst the counties participating, so not only do we have that resource here, but across the counties that will learn from each other about the structure of how we're, the program structure that we're all implementing. Do you want to speak anything to that cohort?
Chair Trieger, thank you so much. We're really excited about the behind-the-scenes work going on, the work that OHSU is bringing to the table. What we're doing, what we're seeing in terms of collaboration is very impressive. And those other models for deflection will still exist, and I think if we do this well, they will be supported by this overall effort. It's adding additional tool. It's not taking anything away. I think when Clint and I come back to you, we'll be talking about where we're finding resources, connectivity. It's absolutely weekly, if not daily, connections at a state level with other counties and with other agencies. The only other state that has gone this route where all the counties have set up programs is Illinois, and we're working very closely with the Illinois organizers to learn about their rollout. Perhaps I buried the headline a little bit to say that we are shooting for an October 1st start date for this program. We are encouraged to start small and don't be expected to do it all at that date, but we believe that is doable work if we're diligent and have a very effective and active summer.
Thank you for that. I want to make a comment and then ask a question that's sort of been touched on, but I want to ask it more explicitly. The comment is deflection doesn't always mean deflecting to a facility. It is deflection away from the court system, the jail, and sometimes that's toward case management, sometimes it's toward residential treatment, sometimes it's toward a family member who's ready to, I mean, it's about deflecting people away from jail and into whatever they need best to succeed, and that we have the resource and capacity. We, the big we, not Lane County government exclusively. So that's important. However, I would love to hear your thoughts on how the Stabilization Center will become a part of this deflection work, as well as the interplay with our existing, co-respondal model with the FIT team, our rollout of mobile crisis. How do all those pieces play together?
Chair Trieger, we're going to be discovering that as we move through the summer. And I do think we'll have a portion of that conversation with your meeting tomorrow as we talk about the opioid dollars and what we're going to be doing with them, because I think that will directly impact the conversation we're having today. But you're absolutely right in terms of the FIT team response, the co-responder models. We're already experimenting, as well as the parole and probation mental health unit model. We are seeing greater capacity to intervene in the street and to start doing exactly the kind of work that we're being asked to do. I think it comes back to your comment, Commissioner Buck. There are things that we're doing well where we are innovating that we need to simply incorporate. One of the individuals who's been speaking to the other counties on how to do this work is our very own Jeremy from the FIT team. He was up at the conference last week presenting to, I believe, 30 out of 36 counties on how to do this. And I don't think there's a person more excited than possibly Flint in this exact model. Exactly how it's going to weave together remains to be seen. But the thinking is if we can't find a way to effectively integrate these, shame on us.
Thank you. And then my last comment is similarly, I was literally writing the word connectivity when that word came out of your mouth. This is about a new program, but also sort of strengthening the connectivity to existing ones. And for me, and maybe we'll talk more about this tomorrow with the opioid settlement dollars, the Burns and other community-based organizations, there hasn't been a really good integration of experience, data, resource. So hopefully this can kind of be an umbrella opportunity to get everybody working together in a way that we weren't required to under the Measure 110 funding.
Yes, and for that matter, all three Burns, whether it's a Latinx focus, whether, we're bringing in individuals or agencies with abolitionist views that really think, we need to move away from a law enforcement model. This is the time and place to be incorporating those thinking. So I think staying attentive to our three separate Burns and finding ways to incorporate the thinking and the focus of all three will serve us really well as we move forward.
Thank you. And for the benefit of the public, Burns are behavioral health resource networks, and each Burn is made up of multiple organizations. So even when we say three Burns, we're actually talking, do you know what the total collective number of entities? I don't.
I know there are over 25 different agencies. At the Public Safety Coordinating Council, we've all been handed little bells to ring every time anyone uses an acronym that needs to be defined. I wouldn't recommend it at this table, but thank you for defining burn, because we
Probably
want this
sounds like
accessible
Christmas
to the
music.
community.
Great, thank you for that. Without any further questions or comments from the board, I would entertain a motion.
Yes, Chair, I would like to move approval of order number 24-05-14-07, one grant and accepting $949,977 from the Criminal Justice Commission for the creation of Lane County Deflection Program, and adding one full-time employee program manager position and increasing appropriations in the amount of $103,126 with the Special Revenue Fund in Community Justice and Rehabilitation Services Department, and $50,000 in contingency, and delegating authority to the county administrator to execute all of those awards.
Thank you. It has been moved by Vice Chair Lovall and seconded by Commissioner Buck to approve Order 24-05-14-07. Is there any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify with an aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Approval of Order 24-05-14-07 in the matter of approving one grant and accepting $949,771 from Criminal Justice Commission for the creation of the Lane County Deflection Program, adding one full-time equivalent program manager position and increasing appropriations within the Special Revenue Fund of $103,126 in Community Justice and Rehabilitation Services Department, and $50,000 in contingency, and delegating authority to the county administrator to execute the award documents. Thank you, Mr. Rickoff, and
Thank you.
very excited to hear back as things move forward.
And Riley and I are looking forward to sitting before you again with updates on this program.
Terrific, thank you. Right, so we did a bunch of skipping around, and we are now at item 8C, County Administration, for any announcements from the administrator this morning.
I don't have any, I do have one, but I'm going to hold it till next week because you've got a busy day today.
We are down for the next 2 weeks.
That's right, yeah, we are.
Is it
Yeah, I can
time-wise?
hold, yeah.
Okay, great, thank you very much. Is there any,
Oh, Chair, sorry, I do just want to
Yeah.
share with the board, I think I mentioned this last week, but we had the second of our public safety funding task force meetings last Friday. So just a quick update there. The Sheriff's Office presented on their budget to the Public Safety Funding Task Force. We have another meeting May 20th. That's this coming Monday, May 20th, in which Christine Moody, our budget manager, will be presenting sort of on the broader history of funding for public safety system, general fund, those issues. They're working on identifying a chair and vice chair, and so I can give you a more detailed update in the future, but just wanted you to know we're heading into the third meeting of that group, and it's been a really good conversation so far.
thank you for that. Before we move to Commissioner's business, do we have any other business today? Seeing none, we will move into Commissioner's, perfect timing. Our HR Director Alana Holmes joining us in case there are questions. So colleagues, this is really our item, and I see it says discussion. It's really sort of an update and discussion regarding the county council transition. And so I wanted to bring back a report to you on where we are as this board authorized me to represent the board. We held one meeting with myself, our current county council, our HR director, Alana Holmes, our administrator, Steve Mokrahysky, and then HR and administrator and I have had some follow-up conversation. And so I really first wanted to clarify when we talk about the interim, we're talking about after the exiting of our current county council up until the selection of a permanent replacement, because we've all agreed, right, that current county council is doing what she's done since she arrived here on day one, which was fulfilling all the duties of her office every day. So the transition plan that we're trying to put in place is for after her exit. And of course, the priority is to keep our excellent team that she has assembled and the folks that have stayed on, that were here when she arrived, keep them well supported. Try to do all we can to not add to an already daunting workload unnecessarily, and just support that excellent team to make the transition as smooth as possible. At our meeting, we talked about establishing a structure for the office, so I wanted to share that update with you, and the idea was that there's sort of identified as 3 essential areas of focus that will help kind of keep the wheels on the bus and to share the work around. And I'll talk really what we need some feedback and direction on is the idea for how to do this structure. First, and sort of the simplest piece, is there are just administrative functions of taking care of the business of the office. So, managing time management requests and signing off on timesheets, requisition or other expense requests, budgeting, and being the liaison to HR for any personnel matters. And we're hopeful and think that since those are very internal functions, we can probably use internal resource within the Office of County Council to ensure those continue to happen and live with one person. The other piece is sort of functional supervision of the legal work, right? This is highly technical work and it requires someone with a legal license to oversee attorney work, coordinate and liaison across teams, review that legal work, sort of quality control piece. And then the third, which is what I'm in particular for us to have some conversation about, is the provision of sort of general governance support. So that's a lot of the availability to us as a board and as individual commissioners when we have questions about whether an item is determinations around executive session, qualifications or disclosures, packet review, motion language, those sorts of things. And to accomplish the goal of that general governance support and in recognition of the complexity and consequence and volume of workload the office has, and with time being of the essence, I'm seeking whether there's concurrence to move forward with a process that would allow HR and the administrator to recruit for a temporary firm to do some contract work, particularly focused on that general governance side. And that would provide a sort of placeholder to then allow us to go out and figure out the longer term recruitment for a permanent replacement. So it would give us an opportunity to really focus on ensuring, again, that the current team is supported and allow our current county council to focus on her work, wrapping up her duties, offboarding her work, creating any kind of documentation memos for a future county council, and communicating with clients across the organization. So we really don't have the time to do a full recruitment for a permanent replacement. There will be a gap. So the next step would be concurrence on bringing in an outside counsel who, as I said, would really primarily focus on those general governance tasks. There have been some preliminary inquiries that have gone out to firms in the community that might be available to provide that, but we didn't want to get too far ahead before ensuring, because this is, in essence, a hiring decision for the office where we supervise the lead of that office. So what I'm bringing before you today is, does that plan meet with this board's approval to find a temporary interim firm to help with that general counsel support and possibly the legal supervision as well, TBD, depending what the internal team feels they have capacity for.
Question there. Thank you, Chair. Is that something that once we have a number of applicants or a few that we could then come forth as a board and discuss and decide then?
Absolutely. Thanks for that question. Yeah. So the process for that would be to complete scoping the work of that, identifying potential firms, getting their responses, and as I said, some preliminary work's been done on that. The other step that would go into that would be soliciting the insight and perspective of the team within the Office of County Council, because really they know better than anyone in this organization what that office needs to be supported and keep the work going. And they have professional relationships and experiences that might be valuable with a firm that might put a proposal forward. So we would definitely want to get their insight and perspective once there was sort of a slate to choose from. my guess is it's going to be a fairly short list. But then, yes, HR and the administrator and I would work together, and then HR would bring those options to us for authorization of selecting that firm, because again, it is a hiring decision that is essentially ours. And if this can be completed, as I said, then we can start turning our attention to the recruitment and timeline plan for a permanent council. Vice Chair.
One more question. Thank you, Chair. What's the possibility, I mean, there's been some talk too about how the council staff is kind of overburdened. What's the possibility or value of the entire staff and the Board of County Commissioners having a work session to kind of hear and air some of the concerns and grievances globally?
I don't know that I would characterize there being concerns and grievances. I don't know, I think the communication around workload, it's very different because they each have a different portfolio. So I'm not sure what you're hoping to learn in something like that, and frankly, it would add to their time, coordinating schedules. I'm worried about delaying the process any further because we have such limited time. I do think, this is why I made sure to mention that I think it's important that the team is part of providing, as I said, perspective, professional expertise, and any insight they might have, both with the bringing on of a interim, but also certainly when we get to figuring out the role for the county council office staff in the long-term recruitment is something we can talk more about. But at this juncture, I really do feel we're at a pretty tight timeline.
So in the absence of a meeting or a gathering, how do we get that information as each individual Board of Commissioner?
Well, our employee is the county council. And so I think that would be part of the process, that I would work with our administrator and HR director, and I'm open to either of them being part of responding to this, but we would figure out what is the best process to get the input from the team about what they need to continue to perform at the high level of professionalism that they have, as well as to manage workload for the long term. I think that's where that conversation lives, is in the process of bringing on the long-term permanent county council. And again, if our HR director or our administrator is hearing that question differently or has a different thought about that.
Yeah, what I'm hearing you ask, Vice Chair, is like the best way to engage with the team, the staff and county council to understand sort of desires and interest and needs moving forward.
Yeah, there's been some information that's been discussed of what's the team wants to put forth of what they need and what their desires are. And I'm just wondering if that line of communication is going to come to each individual commissioner so that we all are on the same page, rather than just it coming between the two of you or the three of you or whoever is. I think it's important that each individual commissioner hears what the concerns or lane of travel that the county council staff wants to go in, and maybe they have some input on what staff that we're considering would be better suited for the transitionary process. Their input, whatever their input is, I want to hear about it, and I'm sure my colleagues want to hear about it.
We have the chair and the HR director and I've had this conversation with a few folks in county council. Definitely feel like we need to make sure that we have a process that allows for good communication with the staff and on what the process is going to look like and the various steps. And I think we all acknowledge that, this is one of the clunky pieces of having a position that a department head that reports to the Board of Commissioners, then you have to have these conversations in a public meeting, and the communication element is less than ideal. But the desire is to make sure that the staff is well informed and engaged in the process, both sort of the short term, and I think what you hear the chair and the board has kind of delegated the chair to work with folks to sort of figure out what is the short term piece and then what is the longer term piece. So those are the two things that are being put on the table. Is from a short term perspective, we need to get a couple pieces in place for management of the legal portfolio, and then also the day-to-day administrative things, and then there's the longer-term process for the recruitment of the position longer term. So I don't know if that's clear, but I think the bottom line is, yes, there's a desire, it's certainly a commitment to make sure that the staff within county council are informed and engaged in the process, short and long term. And then I think we need to figure out what that communication channel looks like between the staff and the board, and the most effective way to do that, because it just, it naturally is sort of a clunky process because of the way the board has to operate.
Did you have, Commissioner Farr?
Thank you. You know, the process that you've outlined, I'm on board with that. I think it's a good process that should work pretty well. The key element being the discussion among the board as to which firms are presented before us to consider, and having a good open discussion on that. So yeah, I'm on it. Let's go.
Thank you. Commissioner Buck?
Along the same lines, I'm supportive. We certainly will need an interim because going through the full recruitment process took 6 months or more last time around. So I can't imagine, with all the competition of different jobs out there, that it would be much shorter than that, especially if we need to come together and review the qualifications and, double check everything before we put it out for recruitment, and if we're using a recruitment firm and all that jazz. So that's I can imagine taking at least 6 months or more, and our council will be out shortly. So I'm certainly supportive of having the interim process as you described. Thank you.
And Chair Trigger, thank you for stepping forward and putting in the extra work to make this happen, and for coordinating with the HR and with the administrator. I trust the process. I think we're going to move forward and come up with a good outcome. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other questions, concerns? So anything that you need from HR or anything you want to offer as clarification or recap?
Chair, thank you. I think you all have pretty much covered it. I do know from talking to some of the staff, they will have an interest in that involvement. And I think hearing the conversation today puts my thinking cap on what does that look like, and talking with folks too about, different people have different levels of comfort and how they will engage. So maybe there's tiered ways to do that. So I will take that back and do some consideration there. And also agreeing this isn't going to be a process where we're turning around a hire in 3 to 6 months. There's a lot there to consider, as well as the question of how we will go about doing this recruitment with respect to it having a firm that comes on board or not. There's so many things that we'll still need to have conversation about. So I do think this is the first step, stabilizing the plan for that whole department as we go through the transition, and finding the best ways to support that department and the talent that's there, and how to keep them engaged and have them feel supported by all of us over these next months.
Thank you for that, Director Holmes. And I just want to state, regardless of circumstance, transitions are always hard, right? As humans, we like to think we know what's coming and feel some sense of certainty, and there's a lot of uncertainty when there's a leadership transition. And so the prospect of, by definition, there being a couple of them in the coming year, is a little destabilizing and causes some anxiety with staff. So I would just ask my colleagues that we all be sensitive to that, that we not put people in uncomfortable situations or add to the complexity or the anxiety of just the nature of transitions and uncertainty. And we make sure we create a good, sturdy container for the process so everybody knows where to put their concerns and their positive feedback as well. And I think that's what's going to get us the most successful result, in terms of our staff being able to continue to perform at the high level of excellence they've demonstrated they can, and help us stabilize things and get the best both interim and longer term recruits. Great. Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for stopping in for that item, Director. Appreciate you. Any announcements from commissioners before we conclude for the morning? Seeing none, any future board assignment requests? Seeing none there, no assignments to review then. And is there any other business before us for the morning? Anything else from our administrator? No, then I will just remind folks, at the sound of my gavel, the board will be recessed. We will reconvene as the Board of Commissioners tomorrow morning for an item from County Administration and then an executive session. So we will be in the Board of Commissioners conference room tomorrow morning. And we will now, at the sound of my gavel, recess for lunch and reconvene this afternoon at 1:30 as a Budget Committee meeting in the conference room. Thank you. We are adjourned.